You froze at some point.
Trying to figure out why that is.
I mean, this would be a really entertaining interview with you just in one very still spot the entire time.
Let me try to reset it here.
Cool.
There we go.
All right.
And now we get a very different, very still image of you.
Yes.
Don't worry, I know this pain very well.
I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Huh.
Well, we had a little bit of, we had like, I'd say 15 frames of movement there.
Yeah.
And then it froze again.
Here's what we're, hey John, this is Ben in the control room. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to restart the Zoom session on our side. In the meantime, if that doesn't fix it, do you have like an iOS or an Android phone that we could maybe do this off of, that we could install the Zoom app on?
Yeah, we could try that.
All right, if you want to start downloading that on whatever your device is, in whichever app store you've got, just look for Zoom. Don't switch over to it just yet. We're going to disconnect on our side. I'm going to reboot the computer. Unfortunately, that takes a moment. And then we'll try reconnecting, and then it should just auto reconnect, and if that doesn't work, then we'll switch over to your phone. So give us a few minutes here.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, there's just like a lot of stuff going on
Yeah,
outside
here's
today.
sirens, I
I
hear
know.
airplanes.
I feel kind of bad.
It's a busy day.
It's really exciting over there. It's really mellow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the lawn guys will come through soon.
Yeah, that'll give him, that'll give it to him.
And a train.
Yeah, and then someone will scream from
Right.
next door
Yes.
as well. So.
And then we would match the energy level of whatever's going on in the background.
Yeah, exactly, and we would just absolutely lose it. So.
Oh my goodness, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. By the way, hi internet. How's it going? Good to see you again. So it's been a while. Been a little bit of time since we last saw each other.
And actually, like you and I haven't done a show together in
A very long time.
about forever. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Other
it's been
than some
quite a
group.
while. Yeah, well, at least solo,
Yeah.
like a duo,
It's got to be
right here. So
forever and a day.
yeah, at least.
So last time John was on was Orbit 812.
That
And-
was like when I was just becoming a thing
Yeah.
on the show.
Like just burly.
yeah.
Yeah, which at the beginning of that show, Ben mentions it was the last show in that space. It was the last time that we were in that apartment, which I kind of thought was funny because, like, wow, that feels like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really that long ago. Anyway, but I didn't think I should have just done my hair the exact same way. Like, I don't have that shirt anymore, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it would have been kind of fun to be like, to see the differences, I guess.
Yeah.
Which apartment?
The one off of Central, not
Yeah.
Catella, the other
Yeah,
one.
got it.
Yeah, because it's the white sound foam background with the blue lights on it.
That we stuck to the wall with cardboard.
Yes, yep. That was a bit of engineering on that one.
So Dutta did it then.
It was a group effort, I would
Gotcha.
say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not to discount any work that Dutta did.
So Dutta did like 80% of it.
Wow, that's just mean.
So.
I didn't clip this.
Well, I was gonna say Ben probably did like 3 or 4% at least. So
You'd be surprised. If it's light, Ben can do it just fine.
yeah, sure.
Aw, insulting Ben. He's not even listening. It's
Well,
not fun that way.
Cooking.
okay.
I was
Cool.
gonna say cooking is lightweight. But,
He can't do that to save his life. Still love you. Yeah.
it's just a pull no punches kind of day. So.
Yeah, very
I hope the internet's enjoying this.
I do too.
Because we're just all hanging out right now. So 12.22.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right.
Oh, I heard myself. That was so weird for a second.
I can see you guys. Can you hear me?
Oh, yay.
Yes,
we can hear you and not see you, but that's half the battle.
All right, so based on this, I think it is on your side. So let's go ahead and switch over to your well, hang on.
Maybe. There's a John.
And nope, it froze again.
Oh,
so let's
no.
go ahead and switch over to your iOS or Android device and see if that helps. You should have the meeting invite number, which you should just request. Go ahead and just dial in. You don't have to disconnect the computer if you don't want to. Whatever's easiest.
So, given the technical difficulties, we probably are going to be starting a little bit late.
Yeah, just a bit. I mean, we're 45 seconds out, so
Miracles have happened,
yeah, it's true. So
just not on this show.
I mean, wasn't it STS 133? They had only like a couple seconds of hold left, and they were able to get it done.
1 second.
1 second, nice.
Yeah, and they still made it.
Yep, that's all it takes.
That was the funny thing. It was like you're in the window where you don't think you're supposed to be able to have a hold because like
Yeah,
you
but
don't
that-
really have a hold before. Then like hold, and I was like, ah.
Yeah, but that was after 3 months of delay.
True.
Yeah, 33 was
Endless tweet up,
oi.
and it was Discovery, of course. So
Yeah, she's a diva.
yep, she is.
It's okay though. Aw. I was just gonna say, like, hopefully John doesn't have
That
to
is
like,
looking better.
hold his phone that way.
We do
the
have
entire
good
time.
motion. Give me a minute. I'm going to do some voodoo magic in order to be able to kind of inzoominate on this video.
So that's why you
Zoom
brought
on
in.
Zoom. Is that what you're saying?
That's why Ben brought in a goat this morning.
Yes. Yeah, the black magic.
Is that working for you?
Yeah, actually, not too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty
How
nice.
about you? Hopefully, you don't have to hold it like that though the whole time. As your arm gets more and more tired, we start to lose you out of the frame. No, I'm kidding.
Let's see if I can put it down here.
I have the same problem with my therapist because we do phone call therapy sessions. And so I go into my car and then I rest my arm on the steering wheel because yeah, it's too hard to hold it there the whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not so bad.
yeah, looks pretty good. So I'm digging the shirt. It's very complimentary, so looks great.
Oh, thank you.
It is nice to be in a peach kind of paley room with a blue shirt. That's really good contrast.
Yeah, good call.
I sound terrible in echo. It's good to know.
Trying my computer again. I think I updated it and it might be working now.
Oh,
Yeah, if we want to give
Are
that
you
a quick
able to-
shot,
I don't
yeah,
know if
you can just
switch back and forth.
you can easily just join on the computer as well. You don't have to shut down your other one, and let's just see if it works really quick.
Yeah. And just saying hello to the internet. We're working some stuff with our video client, I guess is what I would say. And we're just seeing if it can happen. So
Nope, it looks like the computer froze immediately again. So we're going to pop over to the other one, and we're just going to use that for the show if that's acceptable. Can you see and hear us okay on your other device?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
all right.
I see we're still going to need to do a sound check at some point.
Yeah. Definitely.
As you also sit in awkward silence.
Yeah, we're all just kind of
Oh no!
just hanging out.
Oh, okay. That was our director. Ah, it scared me for a second.
Just here in my garage with my new lunar lander. So. All right. All right. This is why you watch live, right?
Totally.
You can see these kinds of moments happen. Or become a patron, so that way you can see these kinds of amazing, delicious moments happening.
Right. It seems like on the phone we have a little bit of a delay, just to be aware of.
Yeah. So I think we'll be good with that.
I can hear you guys okay.
Okay, good.
Good.
Just wanted to make sure. Sometimes with the delay, it creates some awkwardness when you're done talking and then we start talking. I don't know. Yeah, just wanted to make sure. But we should be good. Oh, yeah. See? Good. Perfect.
Yep.
The boys are doing technical things.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can't do things.
Yeah, Ben's got a chair and Dada has a hammer. I don't know what's going on.
I told him he didn't need the hammer this time.
Yeah.
He didn't want to listen.
Oh, now there's a fire.
That's fine, though.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's fine.
Well, I mean, we are talking aerospace. And fires happen. So it's
I have an extinguisher right here.
yeah, I was going to say, we have plenty of those
It's fine.
in here. So we learned our lesson.
Like how you so calmly, you're like, and now there's a fire. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, you get used to it.
I guess. That was funny. At work yesterday, we weren't bored, but it was really, really slow because it was like payday Friday and it was a nice day. So everyone cleared out. And the cooks in the kitchen were cooking, and we can see them from where we are.
Yeah.
And, flames kind of come up every once in a while. That's not like anything's like really on fire, but there is some fire. And one of the girls was like, oh, the kitchen's on fire. We should go home. But just as calmly. And I was like, what?
All right, I think we're ready. I think
Yeah?
we've got it working full screen. We've got it
Perfect.
forward for that.
Did you want to sound check with John?
Yeah, have we done audio checks? We need to do, I think, audio checks with everyone, question mark? Or did we already do that?
Just John.
Just John.
Yeah,
So,
just
John, we usually ask, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Just to, get you talking a little bit.
Or you might have had lunch by now. So
I just had some yogurt.
Nice.
We need something longer.
yeah, what's your favorite sport, and what's the best game you've ever seen of that sport played, and why?
Oh, well, football is my favorite sport, and probably one of the Super Bowl wins for the Steelers.
Very good. Yeah. Is Ben Roethlisberger still the
That coming
quarterback?
across the
Okay, I think that works.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. So,
Oh, yes, because Pittsburgh. I was thinking Philadelphia for a hot minute, but it's Pittsburgh.
ooh, no, don't.
I know.
no.
Well, because I lived in Stroudsburg.
Who's taking
Yeah,
us
don't do that.
I know. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Who's taking us in and out?
I guess I am.
One of you takes us in.
I'll go in.
You'll go in.
Yeah.
Jared, you're going to do Patreon.
Yeah, I'll take us out.
To be fair, I wasn't supposed to be on this show today, so at least one of us is prepared. We slammed the door. I think we're in trouble.
Dad's mad. Dad's mad at us.
Dad's
So, all right.
Nope, I have.
What's your question?
Well, because I have no notes. That would really help.
They're coming.
Thank you.
Here come the note.
Sorry. Sorry, Internet. My bad. I was like, I'm going to
Here
do this. This is going to be
come
fine.
the
And I've got nothing. And I
Gonna
apologize.
be on the screen. The algorithm. Sorry.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
algorithm.
Sorry.
Perfect. That's actually exactly what I needed. Welcome to Tomorrow Orbit 12.22. I can't even believe it's 22 already. I've got Jared with me. I am Carrie Ann, and today we are interviewing none other than the Astrobotics CEO, John Thornton. John actually previously was on our show in Orbit 8.12, so if you'd like to go back and see that episode, that was a great episode. It was not in the studio, so for those of you who have joined us in the last couple of years, might be a different experience for you.
Yeah.
But we're really happy to have John back. And just for those of you who don't know, Astrobotic used to be a Google Lunar X Prize competitor and has actually moved on and gotten a lot more money to do a lot of other things. So, so John, welcome back to the show. It's really lovely to have you. And I'm really excited to talk about...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. About all the things that you've done since the last time we've had you on the show. But just to lay some groundwork, if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself for those of you who have not seen you before, so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Really excited to be here again. I'm the CEO of Astrobotic, and we are building a DHL-like delivery service to take payloads up to the surface of the moon. So we actually have 28 payloads signed up so far, flying on the first mission. And the big news is that NASA added 14 to that manifest with a contract of $79.5 million. So we are ready to go.
That's amazing.
Nice.
I like how you just randomly put out the 79.5 million. Like, that's a cool, I mean, it is a cool number, don't get me wrong, because it's a little bit more than I think most people were expecting to hear, generally speaking. That's so funny. So that's a little bit about you, a little bit about Astrobotic. Can you tell us a little bit about how, like, what the founding story is behind Astrobotic itself?
We got started 12 years ago. Originally, it was to pursue the Google Lunar X Prize, and we started as more of a project than a company. But what we quickly realized when pursuing the prize is that we needed something more. The prize wasn't enough to cover the costs. We needed something that could create more revenue, create more money to make the mission actually occur, and that's when we started to look at business. So about 6 years ago, I transitioned from the engineering side and the business side, and we refocused the company on payload sales. So since then, we've been building the market and making sales in that market, and we're world leading now. So it's been a long time coming, and the prize is no longer in effect. It's since expired, but I think it's really it's done its job because we exist, and there's other companies that are out there building a lunar delivery market.
So John, what about Astrobotic attracted you to come and work for them?
Well, going to the moon, that's the big one.
It's fair.
So I had an opportunity to go work for a big aerospace company, or I could take my moonshot with Astrobotic. And originally, when I joined Astrobotic, the plan was to land on the moon 2 years after I joined. So 12 years later, we are now 2 years out from our moon landing.
That's amazing. That's really cool. It's kind of funny though. I appreciate that you have a sense of humor about that. Just generally speaking, I think a lot of Google Lunar X Prize teams were like, "Oh yeah, this is no problem. We've got this." And sadly, we've seen what's happened. But there have been a lot of companies like yours that have gone on to other things, and I think that's really fantastic. And that's kind of what the X Prize was really intended to do, anyway. Yeah. So how would you describe, if you don't mind, the way that the Google Lunar X Prize, or GLXP, accelerated or sort of kickstarted the company's development itself?
I think the most important thing that Google X Prize did is it created a platform to talk about lunar delivery and talk about lunar missions. If you are a small startup in Pittsburgh with just a handful of folks going around saying you're going to land on the moon, that's kind of hard to do, and people will look at you funny.
Totally.
But the Google X Prize gave us the platform to talk about that, and other people talked about it. It was the beginnings of a promising industry and a market very, very early. But it gave us that platform to get started. So then over the years, we were able to show our technical capability by winning 3 of the milestone prizes in the Google X Prize. We had numerous NASA contracts at that point to date. So it gave us a platform to get started and talking points and a place to tell the world about what we're up to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and when you guys were deep in the Google Lunar X Prize, what was that environment like? Were you guys sort of like was it like a cordial competition amongst everybody in the prize? Or was it sort of what I would expect aerospace to be, where it's like, you're friendly with each other, but you're also keeping, you're very close to yourself, very secretive about what you may be working on?
I think it transitioned over time. In the beginning, it was very secretive and a little bit more competitive. But over time, people quickly realized that it was necessary to be working together. And we actually took a unique step in offering other X Prize teams to fly with us. And in fact, we have a couple signed up for our mission today that will be flying with us to the surface of the moon. So we actually took the opportunity of the X Prize and treated it as a market opportunity for sales and to build up the payload sales pipeline necessary to fly to the moon.
That's awesome. Actually, that ties in really great with one of the questions coming in from our chat room. Astro YYZ says, who do you partner with to launch payloads? Speaking of partnerships.
So the partnerships for getting to the moon are really critical. I mean, one of the biggest challenges we have as a company is, over the last 12 years, is convincing people that it's possible to fly and land on the moon, which has only been accomplished by superpowers. So that's where the partners are so key to show that, hey, this small startup in Pittsburgh can actually get this done because they are partnered with Airbus, great power in the space industry and really world-renowned experience.
Mm-hmm.
We're partnered with NASA through the Catalyst program, where their engineers are working on our lander. We're partnered with Dynetics to build our propulsion system, and we're currently partnered with ULA to fly our lander to space to get out to the surface of the moon. So it's really that partnership that is key for building the credibility, building our story, building the technical capability to make something like this happen.
So, as we found out, unfortunately, the big accomplishments, the big goals that were set for you to win in the Google Lunar X Prize, unfortunately, nobody was able to do it in the amount of time, and I know Google kept extending it and everything. But even with that passing, the expiration of it, what were some of the things that Astrobotic learned from that? What were some of the things that Astrobotic had to take and kind of adapt yourselves for?
I think we learned a lot about the market. I mean, we were focused on payload sales and building up this lunar payload delivery market. And what we learned by selling back to other X Prize teams is how to build the business to go to the moon. How is it going to happen? How do you have the customer interactions? What do the customers expect? And how do you build the service that's going to satisfy their needs? So we really focused our service from the very get-go on that delivery objective. And the X Prize gave us a perfect platform to talk to the other teams, to understand what their needs were, what their concerns might be, and try to address them and really build the company from the ground up as a customer-centric company for lunar delivery.
That's awesome. I really like that. There's there's a question coming in from our chat room. Actually, it's from our YouTube channel, where Stephen Porter is sounding a little bit harsh, I will admit, but it is an interesting question, which is to say, why are you using 60s technology and design instead of moving forward?
Hey.
Which exactly. I think is maybe a little bit on the harsher side, but at the same time, like I think. Anybody who is not actively in the industry, and even some people who are, I suppose, sometimes can look at a lot of these designs and they all sometimes sort of look alike. And they look like some of the stuff that came out in the 50s and 60s. And at the time, it was brand new and nobody had been to the moon yet. And so it was really cool and it looked really futuristic. And now anything else that you see after that, sort of, if it's even remotely reminiscent, even the lander that... Blue Origin just recently put out also has a relatively similar shape and design aesthetic to it. So I think that's kind of where this is sort of coming from as a question, as opposed to being as harsh as maybe it sounds. But what would you say is there like a good reason for that? Like I don't design, I'm not an engineer. Can you explain to me why your lander maybe doesn't aesthetically look that drastically different and like the stuff that we maybe dreamed of while going to the moon in a really cool, sleek sort of situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest reason, not to be glib about it, but the biggest reason is that physics hasn't changed since the 60s.
Sure.
So the fundamental ways that you solve the problems are the same. So some of the technology is literally drop and replace from the 60s. So for example, the landing legs have to absorb the impact on landing. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you want to absorb the impact but not bounce. So you can't put a spring damper system in there like you might have in your car suspension, but you need something that could absorb the energy and not rebound. So the Apollo engineers created a system of crushable honeycomb, mm-hmm. Which is a super affordable, easy way to do exactly that, to absorb that impact and not rebound. So we are using the exact same system in our lander. A lot of the components that fly the spacecraft are same basic ideas that were in the 60s, but they are 50 and 60 years advanced compared to where they were back then. Mm-hmm. The program, the computer, for example, that flew Apollo out to the moon was on order of as powerful as a pocket calculator. Our processors are much, much, much more powerful, orders of magnitude more powerful, and that enables the spacecraft to be much more autonomous in its descent down to the surface of the moon. So I think that there's a lot of parts that are similar, and we're building on that foundation. But the industry as a whole has advanced dramatically.
Sure.
If you think about it, I mean, during the Apollo era, they were creating components for the very first time, and now we have a $360 billion industry worldwide to send things up to space, and only a quarter of that is government spending.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So there's vast quantities of components that are available off the shelf that can be integrated and are very well proven.
Totally.
Yeah, and a lot of sort of in the same vein as the question that we just had from Stephen, right?
Yep.
Is that people will often say, we went to the moon back in the 60s and 70s, so why are we going back?
I mean,
like,
it's
what's
Apollo
the point?
11 50th this year, right?
Yes.
Next week.
Yes, and even towards the end of the Apollo program, people were saying that as well. So I guess sort of to kind of throw Stephen's question around a little bit as well again, which is sort of why the focus on the moon? Like, what is so exciting about the moon that Astrobotic decided to start designing landers for it?
When we went to the moon 50 years ago, the objective was essentially a flags and footprints program. It was to show the rest of the world who had the biggest rockets, to show the rest of the world who had the best technology. The U.S. accomplished what they needed to accomplish during a Cold War. So now the objective to go back to the moon is different. Instead of accomplishing a national priority like that for defense, now the priority is what can we use the moon for to advance our species here on Earth, and also further exploration in our solar system. So one of the first things I point out in this is that the fuel can be used to refuel spacecraft. The moon can become a fueling station. So you could have water at the poles of the moon, for example. You can split that into oxygen and hydrogen and condense that, and that's rocket fuel. So you can use that fuel to refuel spacecraft to go back and forth from the moon, and to refuel spacecraft to go deeper into space. You can dramatically reduce the cost to get to Mars, for example, if you can refuel at the moon. And the moon is also our nearest neighbor. It's our practice ground. It's the place where we need to learn to live off the land. Where we've spent 40 of the last 60 years of space living in space with astronauts, we've only spent 2 weeks on and around the moon. So we don't know how to live on another planetary body. And it makes sense to practice that and figure out the technologies, figure out how to create components from the local terrain, how to mine materials, and potentially use that for creating components on the moon and for future destinations, and potentially bringing some of that mining output back here to Earth to potentially reduce our impact on the environment here on Earth.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I didn't know that part. I want to get back to that for sure, but what you just said also leads in really well to another question that we have coming out of the chat room from Johnny Spacer saying, does Astrobotic have plans beyond robotic missions, i.e. like crewed lander vehicles, etc.?
So we are a space robotics company at the core. So we are building robotic delivery services to go to the surface of the moon, and we're taking various robots with us. So there's going to be robotic exploration, robotic science, and robotic development of the lunar resources. When humans go to the surface of the moon, robots are going to play a key role as well. They're going to be the scouts. They're going to be the ones to figure out where to land. They're going to be the ones that are enabling and helping the astronauts along the way. You could imagine, teleoperated robots being driven out and finding the spots where the humans need to go and explore. So there's a whole array of applications that robots fit hand in glove with human explorers.
All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, so speaking of landers, you guys are working on a lander to send to the moon. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of that lander? Like, where did that begin, and how did you go through your different designs that you've gone with it?
Yeah, our lander development started 12 years ago at the beginnings of the company. We needed a way to go from a launch vehicle in space down to the surface of the moon, and of course you need a lander for that. So our lander Peregrine is designed to take up to 200 kilograms of payload to the surface of the moon. It uses has 4 tanks, 2 fuel tanks, 2 oxidizer tanks. They're liquid fuels in both of them. You mix that together and it ignites. And essentially, you aim that out of a rocket nozzle, and that's what creates the rocket propulsion. So we have 5 main engines, 150-pound force thrust underneath that provide the main braking force. We also have 12 attitude control thrusters around the spacecraft, and those are essentially used to orient the big thrusters underneath. The lander is solar powered, so we're pointing the solar panel towards the sun to generate power to keep things warm and to operate the computer and everything else we need to get out to the moon. Once we get to the moon, we slow the vehicle down into lunar orbit and descend down to the surface for a soft landing. Once on the surface, we become the local utility. So we provide power and communications for the payloads that come with us. So we're like the local infrastructure for the customers and payloads operating on the surface next to our lander.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I love how you describe that, like local utility.
Totally.
You know, you're the phone company, you're the electrical company, you're the sanitation company, other things like that, for whatever your payloads may need. So I never really thought about it like that before, where you really are providing those services with it. So that's
No, that's really cool.
that's a great way to describe it. So,
Yeah, totally.
and you know, you are going to be carrying payloads to the surface of the moon with your lander. So what is Peregrine going to be carrying to the surface?
We have 28 payloads flying with us on the first mission, and it's an array of science instruments, exploration instruments. We've got some marketing, things like time capsules and other stories.
Oh, cool.
We also have moon box shipments from individuals all over the world. We have 8 countries represented on our first mission. We've got rovers, we've got science instruments, we've got precursor instruments to understand what the materials of the moon are. So it's a first precursor toward creating that the moon water fuel. So there's a whole array of different instruments and developments. I mean, you could kind of think about, you know, the UPS truck or the DHL truck driving around in your neighborhood. Think about all of the different packages on the back of that truck and all the different stories that are attached to that. That's a little bit like what we are. We are that delivery truck taking all the different missions from all over the world up to the surface of the moon.
Speaking of stories, and not that this is broadcast live and nobody's watching, so you don't have to worry about that. What would you say your favorite payload is on Peregrine?
Oh, favorite payload? That's hard. I'll say a few of them. So one, our goal as a company is to make the moon accessible to the world.
Cool.
And towards that, we have 8 nations flying with us. One cool story that I like to tell is the Mexican Space Agency. They're a fairly small new space agency, but because they're flying with us, they could be the 4th nation to operate on the moon after China.
Oh, that is
And
cool.
that's pretty darn cool for Mexico.
Yeah.
We also have a payload from Nepal, so literally the other side of the world. There was an astronaut that climbed Mount Everest and brought a moon rock along with him. And now Nepal is sending a moon rock to the moon, or a piece of Everest, I should say, a piece of Everest to the moon. So going full circle. So we are touching the farthest reaches of the globe with our stories and connection points to the moon. I also really like our Moonbox program. So this is designed for individuals to send payloads up to the surface of the moon, so small mementos. So previously you had to be an Apollo astronaut to leave anything on the surface of the moon. And now you can do that through our service. And we have some really cool stories in there. We've got a school in the middle of the country called Balco School. It's K through 12 school. Traditionally they're focused on agriculture. But now because of our program, they're actually able to think about literally sending things to the moon. And every kid in that school is going to be sending something up on an SD card that's going to go up to the moon. So it's I just really like all of the human stories and the touch points all around the world that we get to bring together on our mission.
Yeah, and I saw on your website too, I was kind of playing around with some of there's a configurator on your website for it. I saw that you can literally launch your own personal payload to the moon for under $500.
What?
For that. That is ridiculous. That is so cool.
That's practically unheard
So
of.
if you've got like a reasonable amount of money, you could you could literally send a payload to the moon. So,
Oh, that's really
and
cool.
now I'm thinking about that. What do I want to send to the
Yeah,
moon?
it's exciting. We have a whole bunch of different payloads inside there. Some people will send inscriptions to the surface of the moon on metal. We have family photos in there, like the astronaut that left his family photo on the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
We actually have some pet hair from a family pet that passed.
Oh.
We've got little mementos really that are touch points to people, and I think it's just kind of fun that if you can send something up to the moon, your story will forever be intertwined with what we all see in the night sky.
Totally. Do you have something on Peregrine, or are you planning something?
I will. I haven't decided what yet. I have a short list, and I'll make that decision right before we fly.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. That's so amazing. That's such a great story. I love it. Okay, go. So Peter Quinn from our YouTube chat is asking, whereabouts are you planning to land on the moon?
So we're going to land at a location in the northeast part of the moon. So it's the upper right-hand quadrant, as you see it in the night sky. Mm-hmm. It's a place called Lacus Mortis. And for the Latin scholars out there, that translates to Lake of Death.
That sounds like a lovely place to land. That's great. I'm sure that was chosen for a very logical reason.
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind going into that a bit.
Yeah, so it just so happens that Lacus Mortis is near a pit at the moon, and pits can be entrances to caves under the moon. So it's a destination that could be interesting for the future.
Sure.
And we found a nice, safe, flat landing site that's fairly benign. That's off the equator, so it's a little bit cooler, and it's a good place to go for our first landing. Trying to make it as easy as possible. But in the future, we can return to this kind of site to potentially explore these caves. And caves are amazing on the moon. And I think they don't get enough attention. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably the second greatest discovery on the moon after water, because it is a fundamental building block for settling the moon. So if you have a cave, you have shelter. And people settled in caves on Earth first for the exact same reason that we might settle on caves on the moon first. When you're on the moon, you have radiation that comes from the sun. There's no magnetic sphere to deflect that radiation. But if you're underground, that can absorb that radiation before it reaches you. Mm-hmm. There's also meteorites that come down to the surface of the moon. On Earth, we have an atmosphere that burns them up, and we see beautiful displays of light in the night sky. On the moon, it's a little different. All those meteorites come straight down to the surface at orbital velocity. But if you're under meters and meters of rock, it's a pretty good place to be. The other is the thermal extremes. The surface of the moon can get up to 120 degrees Celsius or 250 degrees Fahrenheit during the day. That's the part you see lit at night. And then it can get down to liquid nitrogen cold overnight. And it's 2 weeks of light and 2 weeks of darkness. That's a long period of really extreme temperatures. But if you're underground, it's one temperature that's fairly well regulated throughout the day, just like being underground here on Earth. So these caves could be the first place for people to settle on the moon. And they're very, very large. NASA found one that they think could fit Philadelphia inside of it.
Oh.
So there is more than enough room inside these things to build a settlement.
Nice. Yeah. Well, let's just move Philadelphia there. So why don't we do that real quick? So, yeah. I was just thinking of the Lake of Death as well. To land there, do you have to ask 3 questions or not?
Oh, see, and I was thinking like the patch should have like a kind of a death metal sort of theme to it. But that's just kind of where my head goes with that, because like you're gonna survive the Lake of Death. I think that's super hardcore.
And Peter Quinn on YouTube is asking, sort of on the same point, regarding the landing area. Is it near caves? Is it near any dead rovers or spacecraft that we have on the moon, or is it sort of like its own area that's been relatively unexplored?
Yeah, so that location at Lacus Mortis is near one of the pits, which could be an entrance to a cave. And this one in particular is compelling because it looks like it partially collapsed. And that's actually good because it creates a natural ramp to get down inside of it. What we don't know is if it's collapsed enough that there's no entrance left, or if potentially you could get inside. Because the traditional thing that you'd have to do for these other pits is it's kind of like a sinkhole, like what appears in Florida sometimes. So it's just straight down drop for tens of meters. So you would have to descend down to get to the bottom before you could enter these caves. But if you could find a cave that has a collapsed entrance, potentially that's a natural ramp to just drive straight down inside. So that's what really drew us directly to the Lacus Mortis pit in particular. So we're going to be landing in the vicinity of that. Probably not close enough to see it directly on the first mission, but we will have some low altitude imagery of it as we come in.
Oh, awesome.
Now, from our chat room, there's actually two questions that I'm going to combine together real quick from two separate people. So in our own chat room, Astro YYZ is asking, are there rules around putting things on the moon? Because one person's memento could be another person's trash. And then Wicked in our YouTube chat is asking sort of in the same area, which is, do you think Apollo sites should be protected with a certain radius, no-go perimeter?
Great question. So first is that there are protections for going to the moon. So to fly anything to space from the U.S., you have to get FAA approval. You also, so the FAA will check all the other agencies like NRO and NOAA and the DoD, just to make sure that you're doing the right things up there. You're not weaponizing the moon, for example. That's against the Moon Treaty. But otherwise, after that, then there is no international law that governs the moon other than the Moon Treaty, which is fairly based somewhat on the law of the sea. So there's like a non-interference agreement there. So around Apollo sites in particular, NASA has guidelines to say, hey, stay away from these particular Apollo sites because we want to protect them, because they're historic sites and they should be protected for a very long time. But we should probably pick one or two of them that we could learn scientifically from. So it is one of the few locations on the moon where we have very, very, very good data about the materials and what occurred on those locations. And we could learn a lot about material degradation and what occurs over a long time after having some kind of human presence on the moon. In terms of leaving things on the moon for our missions, I actually think that our first several missions will be historic sites as well. They're the first commercial landings on the moon. They will be the first landings for numerous countries around the world. But over time, maybe mission 5 through and beyond, maybe it becomes a little more routine. And at that point, I think those landers are then eligible for reuse on the surface. So anything that is man-made on the surface is incredibly valuable. So future developers could use the fuel tanks, for example, to store lunar fuel. They could take the metals, they could grind it up potentially, maybe make powder for 3D printing, for example. You could take the copper and reuse it on something else. So I think anything that's man-made up there is valuable, and the future missions will just be recycled and reused. Over time, though, we would like to get to the point where we can ferry back and forth from the moon. And that's going to need the fuel at the poles of the moon to provide that fuel source to go back and forth from the moon up to lunar orbit and just create a ferry service down to the surface.
Yeah, I like the idea of like stripping apart moon landers and like making your own with it, like a Frankencraft or something like that. It's like Mad Max on the moon, though. So something like that.
Yeah.
So that'd be pretty entertaining to see what people would come up with.
That is funny.
With that.
All this just keeps reminding me of I think it was a Duncan Jones film called Moon, which if anybody hasn't seen, you should go see that because it's really amazing with a really great soundtrack as well. That was really interesting. There's a question coming out of our chat room. From our YouTube chat room from Luke S. Van Hout, I'm going to say. And Luke, I apologize if I've totally butchered your name, but are there any other spacecrafts where your company is working on or thinking about? Because I know that Peregrine is supposed to be launching, I believe it's in 2021, and you said with ULA, is that correct?
That's right. So ULA is our partner right now for launch, and Peregrine is flying in 2021. So Peregrine can take about 200 kilograms to the surface of the moon. We have a larger lander that's twice the size of Peregrine called Griffin that can carry up to 400 kilograms of payload to the surface of the moon. We also have rovers in development. We have a planetary mobility department that is building small rovers that we call cube rovers that can carry small scale payloads. You could think a little bit like CubeSat, but mobile on the surface of the moon. We also have mid-scale rovers. We just won a $5.6 million contract from NASA to develop a rover called Moon Ranger, which is about a 15-kilogram rover for exploration and autonomy development. And then we also have a larger scale rover called Polaris that can carry 90 kilograms of payload across the surface of the moon. That we like to think of as our pickup truck.
Yeah.
So we can strip payloads onto the back and drive around and take them around.
And
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's not just that too that you guys are doing. It's not sort of these things you yourself are working on. You're actually working with NASA as well. Like you just won a commercial lunar payload services contract with NASA. And like, what does that entail for folks who may have never heard of what we're calling now the CLIPS program?
That's right. So NASA created a very forward-leaning program that I think could be a roadmap for other future developments and ways to push the bounds of space exploration and development. And it's called CLIPS, Commercial Lunar Payload Services. And what that is a program for NASA to buy payload delivery to the moon as a service. And that's really innovative because historically, if they wanted to go to the moon or some other planetary destination, they would put a mission together. They build a lander, they buy a launch, they put the payloads on to the spacecraft, and they lump it all together in a big mission. And it might cost 250 to 500, maybe $750 million for this kind of mission. Instead, NASA says, hey, well, we have payloads and there's commercial providers out there. We're just going to pay for a ticket and pay for a ride to get those payloads up there. So it offers a much lower price point for NASA. And basically lets the commercial providers optimize that delivery part and make it regular routine access for our nation's scientists and also access for the world to get to the moon on a routine, regular basis.
Very cool. So it's like a TWA moonliner, flying from the Earth to the moon and carrying whatever it needs to with it. So yeah, really cool.
That's really cool. We got word that your Cube rover, as you mentioned earlier, was actually called Andy. I imagine that there's a story behind that.
Yeah. So one of our small rovers is called Andy. We're partnered with Carnegie Mellon University, and the founder of the Carnegie side is Andrew Carnegie. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's a big name here in Pittsburgh because he was a major steel magnate and one of the great founders of the city of Pittsburgh. So the rover is named Andy after him.
That's really that's really cute. I adore that. I love the concept of, as you say, Cube rover based off of the CubeSat idea, which is that that there's a specific size that it is going to be, that it can be, and that the modifications can come pretty easily based off of that size, is my understanding. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, our goal is the same thing with CubeSats. We want to make Cube rovers ubiquitous and easy for folks all over the world. So we imagine universities and high schools and small companies around the world could access the moon in a very affordable way using Cube rovers. And we've got a few things in the pipe on that, and we should have some cool announcements on that soon.
Oh, that's really
yeah. I'd love a Cube rover to go drive it into one of the caves, see what it looks like inside of there. So
yeah. I would also love to see a student competition of Cube rovers. You could have some kind of terrestrial-based competition, and maybe there's a smaller group that gets to actually fly their rovers to the moon. You have a race on the moon. It would just be awesome.
Oh, that would be really awesome.
The Lake of Death 500 or something.
Yes.
With that there.
So. It's like the best name ever for that.
Yeah, the Mare Tranquillitatis 250. So this year, or the Sinus Iridium Rally. So I'd go watch it. So
totally.
I want to participate in it. So
my goodness,
somebody sponsor me to make that happen.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah.
We got off on a tangent. Don't mind us.
Yeah.
So Wicked in YouTube chat is asking, do you intend to also build a relay satellite for the far side launches, or are you only focusing on the near side?
So in the near term, we are focused on the near side, but we are in conversations with a couple partners that have interest in relay satellites. So that could open up far side landings for us. The other interesting thing that a relay satellite can do is it can provide a very rudimentary GPS system. So there is no location system on the moon like we have here on Earth. Mm-hmm. So it is actually challenging. But if you have a few satellites in orbit, you can do a very basic GPS and that can provide even an additional service for things on the surface. So we are in conversation with a couple satellite companies on exactly that, to start to build the infrastructure around the moon.
Very cool. So I'm only picking on this question because of who's asking it. Vax Headroom in our chat room, that we know as our resident Moonabomber.
You worked on L-Cross.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Yeah.
Is asking, is Dr. Red Whitaker still a part of Astrobotic?
Yeah, Red Whitaker is our founder, and with me, we started the company 12 years ago. So Red Whitaker is a professor at Carnegie Mellon, but he's still the chairman of Astrobotic, and we work closely together on multiple programs. He's primarily focused on the rover side of the developments right now. So he is, for example, the chief scientist behind the Moon Ranger rover, which is that mid-scale rover for exploration and autonomy development.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And what's some stuff that's coming up that you can tell us about? Like, what's the exciting stuff on the horizon?
That we don't have to wait another 4 years to
Yeah.
have you on again to talk about, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I think the most exciting thing is that we are counting down to launch. So we are making regular steps in progress. We're buying components. We will be booking a flight with a launch provider very, very imminently. So we're going to see hardware coming together. We're going to see big milestones around we're actually going to be building a new facility here in Pittsburgh, opening its doors probably early next year. We're going to have rover developments and lander developments, and the pieces and parts of the mission are going to start coming together. And I think we're going to, it's just going to be an exciting time to watch the development and build of all of these things coming together. It's the dreams of the last 12 years finally becoming a reality.
That's amazing. And I assume if you're building a new facility, then you are also hiring? Like, what kind of skill sets are you possibly looking for?
We are. So we are scaling from around 20 people up to about 60 people.
Nice.
We are well on our way right now in that. So we're looking for engineers of all disciplines, so mechanical, electrical, software, V&V, embedded systems, integration and test, you name it, we're looking for it. We are getting a lot of candidates, and things are filling quite quickly, but if there's engineers out there, we are hiring, and send your resumes over.
And just a real hypothetical question here. If somebody wanted to start up their own lunar lander company like you guys did, what would be some of the real core pieces of advice that you would give them from what you've learned over the past 12 years?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the most important things to starting a space company is you have to have passion and persistent passion.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, we were, trying to build this thing for 12 years. We had our ups, downs, lefts, and rights. There were multiple points in our history where we probably should have gone under and given up. But we didn't. We kept going, and it was really for the love of the game. It was the passion that got us through the bad times. So you have to love it. If you're in space, you're in it for the love of the game. It's not a place to, it's not like Wall Street where you're just going to make tons and tons of money. This is a passion play, and everybody that we work with is very, very passionate about what we're up to. So that's really the key ingredient I think you need to have to start a space company.
Awesome. That's amazing. As we are wrapping up, of course, in case anybody wants to know more or get involved in any way, where can people find out more information or follow Astrobotic's process?
You can check out our website at astrobotic.com. We also are on Facebook and Twitter, and we have regular posts and updates there. And then, of course, if you want to join our mission, we've got our DHL Moonbox program right on our website. And for a few $100s, you can send something to the surface of the moon.
That's amazing.
All right.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we have to have you on more than every 4 years because the things are really coming together, and we want to make sure that we are getting the appropriate, what am I trying to say? progress report, if you will. Like, we need to know more is really what I'm trying to say. And then maybe tomorrow we'll come together and maybe we'll put something on the moon.
Yeah, let's figure out what we can put in a box.
Yes.
Figure it out.
Oh my goodness.
With that there. So
Thank you so much for being with us, John. I
Well,
really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much for having me. It's an exciting time, and with 50th anniversary of Apollo coming up, I think it's just such a perfect time to be thinking about the moon and what's next.
1,000,000%.
And of course, we can't do all of this without you, the viewers, helping us out. And we want to thank all of our patrons of tomorrow. You can head on over to patreon.com/TMRO, or now, just today.
Announcing today.
You can head over to youtube.com/TMRO/join, where you can actually go through YouTube if you want to financially contribute to the show at the same tiers with the same rewards.
Yep, you don't just have to do super chat anymore. You don't, if you don't like Patreon for whatever reason, you just really love YouTube, then please feel free.
Yeah. And
We can't do this without you.
Yeah, we really can't. And it's amazing that we're able to do that. And we can't bring people like John on without your help to be able to do this as well. So every little bit helps. And of course, if you'd like to help us, but you can't contribute financially, that's great as well. You can head on over to community.tmro.tv. And that wraps up Orbit 12.22.
Amazing.
We're really looking forward to next week's show because it's on the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's landing. So
good.
So get your lunar gear out, get your moon shoes on, and moonwalk yourself into wherever you're going to have to go in order to watch the show next week. So thanks for watching us, and until next week, we'll see you later. Bye-bye. All right.
Yay!
Yay! I guess the graphics pooped.
Yes, what happened?
At that moment. So
Can we
happens to the best
say
of us.
goodbye to John? There's
Yes!
John again. Yay. Thank you so much for hanging
Well,
out.
thanks,
That was
guys, for
awesome.
having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, feel free to hang up. Unfortunately, we can't hang up on our side, so there's that weirdness, awkwardness there. But no, really, thank you. This was a really great interview.
Well, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good one.
Have a good one, John.
You too.
All right.
Ta-da!
Woohoo!
So funny. I looked at Vax's question and I was like, I don't know if this is leading somewhere or not, and I don't know if I should take this question, but like it's Vax and I trust him, so
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
right.
gonna ask.
That's right. Very, very cool.
P.S. Congratulations, Vax, on your brand new Model 3. It looks gorgeous in pictures. Looks like
Yeah.
you did the blue outside with the black interior, which is not the way I would go, but that's okay. It's
so
not my
jealous.
Model 3, so as long as you are happy with that. I would like to know what you named your Model 3, as every Tesla owner gets to name their car. Every car owner should name their car,
Yeah.
generally speaking. No?
Absolutely.
Do you have a name for your Jeep?
Yes, the war rig.
The War Rig.
Mm-hmm.
The War, that's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, should I ask why it's called?
It's Mad Max.
It's Mad Max. All right. That's yeah.
One of my favorite characters from Fury Road.
Gotcha.
Is the truck itself.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I mean, that makes sense, knowing you.
Yeah.
Knowing you the way I know you,
Yeah,
as
it was
well
really-
as I know
It
you.
was entertaining, to say the least.
Oh,
so.
goodness. Yeah, I would love to know what Vax named his truck.
Yeah.
Or named his car, I mean.
want my Tesla pickup already.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Do you have a name picked out for that already?
No,
No.
I don't.
You're just going to have to feel it out.
I mean, I mean, Elon said it's going to look like something from Blade Runner. So maybe I'll try to figure out something from Blade Runner that would sound cool to name it. So,
This is
but I just want it already. I
dirty
want an
little
electric
secret.
4x4
I have
already.
not seen Blade Runner.
Okay, that's fine. It's kind of, it's really, oh man, it's kind of tough. It can be tough at times.
Yeah.
To sit through it. So, yeah.
Deckard?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's the name of the main character.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Deckard.
Sorry.
Or Blade Runner Deckard.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't
That's
seen
okay.
Moon, you should see Moon, because like
Yes.
all this, it wasn't just because we were talking about the moon, but it was like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna have robots do these things, and then we're gonna like go mine it and whatever. We really don't need humans, and I was like, oh, it's just like the movie. It's freaking me out. Which my car, named Gertie, for those of you who have seen the movie, does come from that movie, by the way, in case anybody cares.
That's good. So I will say I have not seen Moon yet, so I think I should fix that.
It's
It's Sam Rockwell too in it, right?
Sam Rockwell.
He's awesome in everything.
It's basically Sam Rockwell and then some other people. Like it's
Gotcha.
nearly a one human
him.
movie. Yeah.
him.
Like you really legit almost don't see another human in the whole rest of the movie. They have to have like some things because like he calls home and like talks to the wife and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
people who set him up there and whatever. So like the CEO or whoever, like his project manager calls him once in a while. So like there's that. But like that's it. It's basically Sam Rockwell by himself on the moon with these robots and they're doing some mining. And I was like, oh, this is really creepy. Talking about moon. Yeah, but the soundtrack is really fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard some of it before. And it's
Really beautiful.
excellent. So
Yeah. Little known fact. Like I said, I believe it was Duncan Jones. I'm going to feel really bad if I'm getting his name wrong. Who's the director of Moon. But the director of Moon, whatever his name is, in case I am getting
Duncan
that name wrong.
Jones, I believe.
Duncan
So-
Jones. What did I say?
No, it is Duncan Jones.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah,
Goodness
I think
gracious.
so. If not, someone will correct us in the chat room.
At one of the Space Frontier Foundation conferences, they give out awards. And the year that Duncan Jones won an award, so did Space Vidcast.
Nice.
Yes.
Very, very cool.
We got a bludgeoning object that the plane would not let us bring home.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's always good.
It was great.
Nice. I think he's also the son of David Bowie, I want to say.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Now we're going to... The internet's
Yeah.
going to correct us. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Oh, I know the pickup's a while away, so I'm saving my dollars for that.
Peter Quinn, I did not get pet cat pics.
Got
and
cat pictures.
I feel like that
Where's
should
the
be
cat
rectified
pictures?
immediately.
We're on the internet, so where's the cat pictures? Where are they?
There's a friend of mine who has a brand new kitten, and so now
Oh,
her
God.
entire Instagram is filled with this brand new
kittens.
kitten stuff.
Yep.
And it's the cutest damn thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yep, just like when I got Missy when she was a puppy.
Yes.
It was just like 3 solid months of like, look
Yeah.
at this puppy.
Right.
So can you believe this thing?
Apparently, this kitten doesn't like to be alone, and when my friend is getting ready in the morning, the cat will climb up her body and sit on her shoulder as she's like doing her
Nice.
makeup and whatnot. And I just think that's hilarious.
It's like a pirate, but with a cat
Yes.
instead of a bird.
Right? Which is cute now, and when that cat is 15 pounds, it's not going to be so cute
Yeah,
anymore.
I've never owned a cat before,
Oh, yeah?
so I have no idea.
Gotcha.
Haven't a clue.
I've actually never owned a dog. I've lived with a dog, but I didn't own the dog.
Gotcha. So yeah, I've never even lived with the cat.
Interesting.
We've had a cat at my family's flower shop,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
But
Like a cat off the street or like,
well, actually, the present cat, yes.
okay.
Yeah, Daisy May.
Daisy May.
Yeah,
That's
she's a little tortoise shell
adorable.
cat, and she, what happened? She.
Aw, Kevin, that's so sweet.
Oh.
That's really cool. I mean, it sounds like an
Wonderful.
amazing opportunity, and I would also not give it up. No
Yeah.
offense for the
No,
show,
you're
but
good.
like show is like what I do. So, Kevin, for those of you who are not reading it, says, sorry, tomorrow, next Saturday, I'll be standing in front of a very large radio telescope in the UK as part of the communication network for Apollo 11. But I will tell them about your channel.
Nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much.
Very sweet.
So yeah,
That sounds like really cool, though.
yeah, it does. I'm kind of jealous.
I have a friend who just got a job at a telescope. Yes,
Yeah,
see,
there
thank
we
you.
go.
At a telescope in Arizona.
Zona? Yeah. There's lots
has-
of optical telescopes there.
It has 2.
The Large Binocular Telescope.
Yeah, that one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's gonna go work there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so which is great because now I've got a hookup, and so I can be like, "Hey, Tyler,
Hey.
can I?
Hey.
Can I?
Can I get some time
Right.
on that? So
I want to go see it.
we could.
Apparently, it's like up a hill or something.
Yeah, it's on. I believe it's on. It's either on or very close to Kitt Peak in Arizona.
Okay,
which
I
already
don't know any of
has
that,
a
so
ton
sure.
of telescopes on it
Oh, yeah?
to begin.
Okay.
Like big telescopes on it to begin with.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
I'm really excited.
I would love to go.
Right,
to Kitt
we
Peak.
should
That
road
would be
trip.
sick.
We
Yes.
tomorrow road
road
trip.
trip.
to the
Road trip.
Binocular. Is it binocular?
The Large Binocular Telescope.
Large binocular.
Yeah,
telescope.
I think it's 2 8-meter mirrors right next to
Yeah,
it.
they look. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're really close.
Yeah.
For how big those things are. He was like, yeah, there's one and there's the other one. I was like, oh, that's like a thing.
Yeah,
I didn't understand. It's
pretty
That
wild.
was really cool.
so, yeah.
Cats rule. We are their
their
servants.
servants, true.
Yes, Marty the Martian. I don't know where in the world you are, so I don't know if you have HBO or have access to HBO. But there's Love, Death, and Robots is a series, a short like each episode, kind of like Black Mirror, don't really have anything to do with each other, but they also kind of have the love, death, and or robots theme to them. And there is one featuring cats, robots and cats, and it made me laugh.
Because that seems like the fundamentals to human storytelling: love, death, or robots.
Right.
So
Sometimes all three.
yeah.
And I think that's cool. What time is the next show today? Astro YYZ is asking. That's a good question, actually. I'm never on Steam. So
Yeah,
I
I
have
don't.
no idea
I don't
what it is.
remember, but I noticed some of our people.
But none of our
here.
other people are here.
So well, I see Jade.
Oh, you see Jade?
Yeah, Jade's
Where's
here.
Jade? I don't
So-
see Jade. I hear Jade. 12:30 PDT. Thank you, Galactic
Yes,
Princess. I
which
appreciate that.
is 1930 UTC
So roughly half an hour is
or
what we're
UT.
saying.
Excuse me, Universal Time.
Ah, yes.
So sorry, I keep forgetting to stop saying Coordinated Universal Time.
You could say Universal Time Coordinated. Because it's UTC.
Yeah, because I think it wasn't originally Universal did time.
Yeah, it's
It's
the nine or
French.
something. So
Thank you,
yeah,
Dara. Yeah, it's French.
That's
That's all
cool,
you
though.
really need to know.
so
It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's neat.
JD.
Nice.
Hi.
From over here.
I got the memo.
Yeah?
I'm putting this in a mug.
Yeah?
Good.
I'm a capitalist pig and I get it.
Oh, it's all right. I got a bottle of water. It's fine.
Okay.
It's totally fine. I don't care. The environment.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I didn't want to drink water yet. So, because I wanted to make it through the show. Because now I'm
They
about
are
to go.
because I cleaned them today. I cleaned
Yeah.
all of them today. Oh, you know what? We got to reset the set. We
Yeah.
have a guest in house. Hi. Oh, they're beautiful.
Thank
Those
you.
And
are,
they're
I can even see
matte.
from over here. Those look
they're
wonderful.
They're
They're like
matte.
teeth.
Like Trident.
They do actually look a little bit
4
like
out of
teeth.
5 dentists recommend that
We should make
manicure.
one of them slightly yellow, though.
Oh my god. Then it can actually match mine.
Right. You're so funny.
Or I can have like a dead tooth.
That's
like,
not what I meant.
Like a dick. Yeah, she's got this dead tooth.
I love how, like, on
As she
camera,
plays
it's just your
hockey.
arm, too. It's amazing
Oh,
right
you
now.
guys can see. Oh yeah, that's funny. It's like
Good.
like
A disembodied hand
Yes.
suddenly appears
Exactly.
out of nowhere.
Oh, Jared, you should have stuck your arm off the other side, and then it could have been like your arm was coming
Oh
in.
yeah. Hey, you wanna?
Who's she? She
She's
what?
in studio? Or
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
I don't, for some reason, I thought we were Zoom.
Negative. You are not Zoom, so we should
Reminds me of
do
the
some things. on
Eric
the set.
Andre show. Whenever they have like things come on the set.
That's what I'm saying.
One time they have snacks come on, but it's
Right.
on like a very long stick,
Yeah.
and they like can barely handle
Yeah.
it, so they spill some of it
It's good.
on the way there. So I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll help you do the set, and then I'm gonna go to a mountain.
Yes, you have a mountain to go to. What did you say, Jade?
So warm in here.
It's very warm in here. Summer.
It's to keep you awake. So,
Sure. Who doesn't like sweat or sweating? Sweatang.
I'm so sweaty.
I mean, luckily you only have part of your shirt, so
I know,
you should
I
be
always
fine.
do, man. It's like
Yeah.
It's like I go through a paper shredder every morning.
I'm gonna go take my shirt off now.
Assume it's purposeful all the way around. It's a great shirt, though.
You guys ready for me to take my shirt off?
Forever 21 has all these like
You guys ready for this?
clothes right now.
Yeah.
I almost bought like 5 of these as like Jade stock because they have them in all colors. So I only got 3.
I bought this shirt at Uniqlo,
Oh, Uniqlo's great.
and I love it. And then I also went back and bought like all of the colors. Well, almost all the colors. The light lavender was no go on me. It was like really not on the skin.
Really?
Yeah, no, it was terrible. It was
Yeah.
really bad.
I always forget how skin looks different
Yeah.
on every person.
Even lighting.
I'm sure this conversation is really
Be
great when they
different,
can
too.
only hear my side of it. Yeah.
Colors.
Yeah, colors are like a thing.
I got this shirt at the Griffith Observatory gift shop.
Is that why it says Griffith Observatory on it?
Yes.
You
Okay.
look narrower.
I am losing a little bit of weight
Oh,
from doing all this working out for
That's rad.
like
Oh yeah,
You
good
look
call.
narrow, but you look like built. Orange
yes.
Julius.
Hi Julius. I look built.
Wait. Did Julius like
Ready to
announce themselves?
Hi Julius. Welcome.
He's welcoming himself.
That's what I'm
I do
saying.
that when I go into a room.
I don't know.
YouTube is telling us that we got a new member.
Copy. YouTube is telling us.
Yeah.
Okay, because it sounded really
Jared
like.
is here.
No offense.
How's
I'm sure
everybody doing?
There.
Jared is so thrilled to be here right now.
Our first member on
Jared's
YouTube.
gonna
like to say,
Jared's gonna
so
have a
excited.
seat.
Copy. So the brand new, no, I care. So the brand new thing with the whole, like, you can go on YouTube and, like, pay money things, Julius is the first.
Congratulations.
That
Julius.
is amazing. And I'm glad it
Congratulations.
came across that way and not like Julius just decided to announce themselves when
Julius.
they walked into the room.
So that's an automated
Which is
thing.
totally okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's
So,
an automated thing.
Nice.
Which is
That
really
is
cool.
funny, though. I like the idea
Right?
of somebody saying, new
Julius,
person
by
here.
the way, right now
I'm
is
Jared.
like, peace, I'm out. This is not going to be a thing.
Welcome, Jared. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here now.
That's what I mean.
How's it going? I'm Jared. Welcome.
Hilarious.
Old member.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Oh, Dutta. Old member Dutta is here.
Welcome me. I have arrived.
You're not that
Welcome
old,
me. I'm going to start doing that when I walk out of a plane on trips. I'm here now.
Right.
In Alabama.
Like,
Welcome
I
me.
have arrived.
Witness me, welcome me.
That's what I mean. I think it's hilarious. Good times. I think that's totally funny. You have
Hello, San Francisco. Welcome, Jared.
right?
So, yep.
That's so good. Oh my goodness gracious.
Okay, I got to go wash my hair.
All right. In our sink, apparently.
And make water. Actually, I am.
That's great. You might want to turn off your mic for this.
Oh no, I'm taking everything of my electronics
Taking the
off.
shirt
So
off,
that was
taking-
almost a phrasing moment.
It wouldn't be Jared if it wasn't a phrasing moment. Yep. Wow. Around, as it were. See, the problem here is that I only have the one chat room and I don't have the other chat room, so I don't know if anybody's saying anything at all in any way, shape, or form.
So if we have an in-person, that means I don't need any electronics. Do we need this?
Depends on how many images we have.
Do you want the screen too?
Do we have enough images? Like, if we have something interesting, then they can point to it. 2 images, so then probably not. It's good for comments, though. Good for comments? So we're going to keep it.
Didn't we have it? Like, yeah, that's how we had it last time we had it in studio. It was like
Yeah.
two of us here, and then we attacked that person.
Can you move in just a bit?
You want this one in a bit? Yeah.
If it's just comments, we don't need to worry about crowding the guests.
No, yeah. All the things that you just said are true. Oh, God. Oh, is that, this one might be tilted out a wee bit much.
No, it's down. Trying to balance across all three.
Then that one. I think that one should go back a little bit and that one in a little bit from here. But if you say it looks fine, then it looks fine.
It looks okay. Doesn't look great.
Okay.
It's a little lopsided, but
Well, I mean, because it's going to be. But like, and then in this way, just a titch. Like, sure.
I mean, it's going to be lopsided. I don't see a way around it not being lopsided.
Right. Who's on Steam? Jaden.
Anybody need to go before I go in there? and
Manju.
for a couple minutes?
Go.
No, go.
I'm just
He's
making
using
sure
the potty.
because I'm going to be washing my hair and changing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. Cool. And Manju hasn't shown up yet, correct? Correct.
She texted over problem with the car, problem with the plate falling off her car and shattering.
Oh,
So she's going, according to Gibbous, she'll be here before the show, but barely.
but barely before the show. Okay.
I'll start a few minutes late.
Okay. And we don't have a guest in house yet, correct? Okay. So it's the carry-on show between here and there. Sorry, kids. Jade is right there. She's copy. House isn't guest, or guest in house, I guess I should say. So I'm going to D all of the things. Space news. So, Steam coming up shortly. See you guys. It was nice to be on again. Talk to you later. Bye.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're all on the same page.
This is why you guys are here. You. I'm just that.
Maybe not the best.
I'm just that idiot teenager who doesn't know what they're doing.
I have another layer, so this is not nearly as.
I didn't show anything though. Ah, that's
But
cool.
like, you know,
Modesty.
you were up in the boo-boo region.
Booble?
Boo-boo region.
I'm just so like I always like, cause I'm not like blessed like Carrie Ann. So I always feel like a boy. I feel like a boy sometimes, and I'm just like it's like there's nothing there. It's like okay, it's a bit. Sorry, never mind. Am I good? I'm good. You can hear me. All right, cool. Whew, I'm sweaty. You're waiting for my egg to crack?
Just not everyone's got an egg to crack, man.
What does that mean? I love it already, and I like the way it.
It's kind of like.
I'll tell you later.
Oh, really? You think that I'm? Oh, wait. Do you think I'm gay?
No.
Oh, you said
I will
coming
tell you-
out.
I will
like
tell you
that.
later. We are on the air. I will tell
Oh
you.
man,
Yeah,
I want to crack an egg.
need you to move over one chair.
Got it. Oh, my hair. Don't worry.
It's fine.
This gets better. It gets better.
Your hair's fine.
Thank you. I just washed it. Wanted to smell nice.
Jade, look at me.
Yeah, I think the chair is.
Yeah, this doesn't work. We either need to kick the chair this way, so it's facing towards the light, or we need to shift everything over. But I still need to, no matter what, kick the chair.
Let's kick it. Kick it. Let me move.
Yeah, the problem is you're getting. No, I think the problem is that she's facing too far this way. We actually need to see this on the chair next to you, or something more like this,
Ah,
and reduce the angle of attack.
got it.
If that helps.
That will soften the offensiveness of my face.
Well, no, but
Just
we'll
kidding.
get better light.
No, yeah.
Am I good to go in? Okay. Try that. Sit there for me, please.
Hi.
To here.
Hi. It's just me. Just kidding. Should have put a different face on this morning. I'm sorry. Just kidding.
Oh, that's the problem. I cannot.
Genetics.
Could you sit in that chair for me, please? How tall is Manju? Anyone remember?
Tall
Taller
as
than I
shit.
am.
Like 5'9".
Yeah, she's about JD's height. I have no torso, you have to remember.
She's
Could you move? All right.
my height, but I'm wearing heels.
That's okay. It would be what she's doing
Torso.
in the chair.
Torso.
Oh, torso. You're right. My torso's not wearing heels.
Back to here.
It's not right now, anyway.
All right. Let's try moving these chairs. Let's ignore this chair and let's ignore everything else. Let's try moving everything about 2 feet forward, or yeah. Yeah.
2 feet. Oh, that's
See that?
not weird. This, but okay.
We're ignoring everything else, Jade.
Oh, sorry.
To here, please. Jade. Thank you. Okay. You can put the chairs back where they were. Not fill on the left side of the faces. We're not going to hover on that camera.
That's about it. There it was. Actually.
Look to the guest chair, both of you, for me. And that's how you would naturally be facing.
I mean, I imagine, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're talking to each other for some reason.
Yeah. Okay, Jade, up. Watch out, watch out, watch out.
Oh, dear goodness gracious.
All right, back in your chair.
Okay. It's like a dance choreography. Oh, shit.
shadows on that one because you're coming in this way. And this one is pretty relevant because we look for this direction.
This actually has no changes either.
Yeah. There wouldn't be. They were good here.
Yay.
All right, I'm done.
Good work, everyone. Let's go home.
That's the show.
Do we need this?
Is it showing up on camera? Then yeah, if we can leave it that for the space news marker in front of this.
Space, coast to coast. All right, let's see here.
Woohoo! All right, I think we're ready for you.
Beautiful.
We are live, so everything you say is
Part of the-
Can and will
No, yeah, we are.
be used against
it's
you.
not a space show, and we don't go off the air in between. So they,
They saw everything.
this entire time. So just keep that in mind. You're fine. Just keep that in mind. Like, don't talk about anything confidential or anything that you wouldn't want to be part of a permanent internet record. That is the only point. Otherwise, we won't bring anything up like out of that.
I'm not sure if I turned your mic on.
Oh,
That was the time.
what number? Yep. Excited for Disney? Yeah. It's gonna be fun.
Oh, yes. Cool. Hi. How was the drive over here?
It was actually my first time driving in LA.
Oh my.
What?
That was?
Well, like I've been here 3 months.
Oh,
and I've just Ubered
goodness.
everywhere, and today I was like,
It was really far, and so I borrowed my landlord's car.
And how was it?
It was kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. What freeways did you take? Because that's
The
what we
ones
always
Google
talk
Maps
about.
told me to.
Got it. You're gonna get very familiar with the 405 probably.
Yes,
And the
I
5.
did take that one.
There you
I
go.
did also take that one.
And the 10, all those fun
91, was
places.
that a one?
91's a good one. Yeah, we just love talking about freeways
Yeah.
in these parts, I guess. Well, that's cool. Traffic wasn't that bad though.
No,
That's
I don't think so.
good. You would know if it was bad.
Yeah.
You would be a lot less pleasant right now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right. So, I think the way we're going to structure this interview, it's very conversational. So, basically, like we're going to have a few points that we're going to want to hit on, but also we're going to definitely just go with the flow of the conversation naturally.
Nice.
Generally, we start off learning about you as a person and kind of like what led you to the field of work you're in now, what inspired you, right? Or do you want to try the reverse thing that we talked about, where we could just go straight to the meat and then we transition to the, well, why did you do that? Because
So we do try to start with why.
yeah.
But we do that, so to that point, establishing credibility first,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
Is she insane? Maybe.
Who is this
yeah,
lady?
People make connections with people, not with programs or not with rockets, not with hardware, right? So they're going to connect with you on a human level, and they're going to connect with your stories fundamentally. So we're looking to make you look like a human. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll try to blend in.
Yeah, right. Don't let your Martian show. But like, definitely like, kind of your story of who you are, and then why you're doing what you're doing. And we really like to focus on the why, not the what or the how. The what or the how are driven by the why, and everyone else seems to like to ignore the why. We think the why is the most important part. So we're gonna hammer a lot of like, why that, why that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
We're going to sound like annoying 10-year-olds. Why?
Why?
What's
Why?
that?
Why?
I love asking,
Why?
what's that? What's
We
that?
also have a live community. We will post their best. This is the moderated room, so we'll post the best questions here. You don't need to worry about any of that. It'll be in your line of sight, so you'll be able to kind of see what we're doing. The hosts will take care of all of that for you. So don't worry about it. It'll just kind of magically pop up. There'll be other weird cues that the control room is sending over to the screen. Just ignore them all. All you need to do is just have a great conversation
Yeah.
with you.
Just pretend like that's not even there,
Yeah,
even though it's
cameras
bright
aren't
and
here.
large.
Yeah, cameras aren't here, screen's not here, no one's here. Just great conversation.
So, and the strategy for when I feel like I don't know how to say something or I feel stupid is like interpretive dance or like
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Like
Interpretive dance.
Highly
is
encouraged
absolutely
dance.
The right call
Okay.
on that one. Yeah.
everything.
Uh-huh.
To that point, I don't know is also an allowed answer.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
we're here to get people excited about space and STEAM. So, like, We won't. There are no gotcha questions. There's no anything like that. We
Cool.
just want to hear great stories from you. That's all we really want. We want to help inspire the planet.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you know,
I'm
it
excited.
doesn't have to be this one planet. Like that's thinking really small, isn't it? Like we should inspire
The
solar
planets,
system.
yeah.
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 Slow down, cowboy. Just kidding. Don't slow down.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing website, by the way.
Thanks.
I was, I've been, definitely getting acquainted with it the past week.
It's quite sparse. It's
I like that, though.
dangle a bit.
I know, it's like simple. I like it. Very cool. So you've been in LA for 3 months, you said?
Mm.
And had you previously visited?
Yeah, I came for an internship at UCLA like
Oh, really?
3 years ago. That was actually when I read Elon Musk's biography, and it kicked off a lot.
Oh,
I
that's
think
so
it was
cool.
3 years ago. I feel like I've been like in a time warp.
Definitely going to ask about that because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and then I came here in August last year for 10 days to kind of scout.
Yeah.
And yeah, came back, obviously. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Right?
I
Yeah.
freaking love it here.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The upside down. Or the right side up over here.
No, the first time I came here, I was like, I hate the city. It's dirty. I can't go anywhere.
still feel like that.
Oh.
I mean, on some days, it's a beautiful. We have no complaints. It's a beautiful
I have many
state.
complaints.
Yes, you do, but
But I came from Minnesota, so I don't have
Yes.
really the same number of complaints that Minnesota has. So it's the Arctic up there. It gets insane, crazy cold. And I did one winter here, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm
This is
never
good.
going back.
That's good. Now, I've kind of come the opposite. Like, I just came from Brisbane, which is like super humid, and to the point that you'll be sleeping with ice on you, or like I'll come home and like my flatmate will have like ice wrapped up in a tea towel on her head while she's studying. Like, it's insane hot. So here I'm like, oh my god, it's so cool.
yeah, exactly. And when it gets hot, it's dry heat. You know, it's not super sticky like Florida. Never been to Florida. But I hear it's terrible.
Then you get off the airplane, and you get hit
Yeah.
with this like wall of humidity, and
That's like Brisbane,
the moment you step off, you feel like your life force is pulled from your body.
Yep, and you go for like a run, and it's just like a sauna, so you're kind of getting two at the same time. Yeah,
Star Maiden.
yeah, I really like it here.
God, I have so many questions I want to ask. I'm excited. Australia.
Is this full time for you both, or?
That would be cool. No.
That'd be cool.
We don't generally on the air talk about my
Crikey.
job, so we just call it Company X, which
You
what
look like Steve Irwin.
extract where that company is. or
Does
what
it happen
the
to have an X in it?
company- Sorry?
Does the company happen to have an X in it?
Have a.
X.
It does have an X in it, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's I was like, what's going on? Why are we talking about X's? This is not that kind of show.
May have
But it can
mentioned
be.
the CEO earlier, that one. So,
Oh,
right.
that guy.
That's cool.
Talk about that off air. I do that. Jade works with the youths.
Yeah, partly, mostly. Yeah, I work for a nonprofit. We try to get more female and minorities into rocketry and STEM.
so cool.
Yeah, it's super awesome. I work with really, really cool people. Yeah, so that's my full-time gig. And it's really cool because it synergizes with this very well because it's a similar mission, getting more
Yeah.
people excited about STEM
Yeah.
and into space. And we try to, we often, people will say we harp on it, but we often try to like bring up like inclusivity and how important it is. So it's kind of cool that everything works out.
Cohesion.
Yeah.
Synergy. Other terms from the 90s.
Doing this.
Doing
Talk to corporate.
Some pillars of success all lined up.
Oh God, I hate it so. I hate your, what is it? Your supervisor voice. I'm not into it.
I may have practiced this.
Your
quite.
team building voice. I can't stand it.
Well, Jade,
If you talk to us like this, I'd quit.
Jade, I think we need to do a quick one-on-one.
I hate it. Oh my God. I prefer verbally abusive than.
Do it right next time.
There she is.
Well, I hear what you're saying. Let's deconstruct that.
She's. Let's unpack this.
How do you feel right now?
She's like your rage interpreter, like the Obama's anger interpreter.
Wait, what?
You never heard that?
No.
Key and Peele?
Yeah.
One's Obama and the other is his rage interpreter because Obama's always very like cordial and articulate, and then he just has this like his rage interpreter is like what he's actually trying to say. Yeah, like have you seen it?
No.
I can't have been the only person who saw it. It's hilarious.
The only person who's seen it.
Key and Peele.
No one's mentioned anything here, so.
Oh well, you
No,
know.
no excuses.
Check this out. Oh yeah, see, like a million people.
Yeah, no, I can't see
One
it on
person
screen,
said they've seen it,
so-
so it doesn't count.
Did you make this little contraption?
It's
not actually that
whole
little.
Space station facade?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, that was designed and built by me and only me. No, I'm just kidding. So Dutta in the control room, Tim, he actually designed this. This is, believe it or not, made out of wood.
I was trying to, looking at the texture, I was like, it looks a little bit like it might be wood, but you would think it'd be a 3D or plastic or.
I know.
It's
Hey,
pretty,
man.
It should have been.
pretty nifty.
You okay?
Not great right now. I don't know if I should host.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to step this way?
You and
Were there supposed to be 2 of you?
Yeah, generally, I know it sounds like weird. Generally, we do have 2 hosts, and it just kind of like usually, informally, one person is kind of like also contributing to the conversation, asking questions, but they're kind of
Syncing
keeping
with that.
an eye on the chat room, so that way there's at least always one person fully engaged. I mean, we'll both be fully engaged, but it helps like so that our attention's not split the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally it's 2, but then one-on-one's fine as well. We do those as well. Really, yeah, it's pretty relaxed around here. So whatever works. Absolutely, and we are scheduled to go live. We're scheduled to officially start at 12:30, but I think we're going to be pushing it, if I'm not mistaken.
Can't see a time.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to swap in Carrie Ann.
Okay,
She's going to give me side eye.
got it.
She did not do normal host prep for this.
That's fine. I did.
So she'll act as layman. I'll have her take us out most likely with the Patreon slates.
Got it. That's always a good idea.
But I'm going to need you to bring the show in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool.
And it is pronounced Estrella, right?
Astria.
Astria. Estrella is star in Spanish. That's
be
what I was getting
Estrella.
confused with. Astria. Astria. Star.
That was my interpretation.
I love it.
Theoretically, if you really pronounce it, it would be Astrea, like as the whatever, but
Uh-huh.
I just made it
Astria.
Astria.
I'd rather say it the way you say it. That's such a beautiful name. We'll talk about that. Because when I was like reading, because on the website when it was like describing like what it's derivative of and whatnot, all I could think of is like this would be the coolest like 80s metal band full of like women. Like that's all I can think of is like Astria, Star Maidens. And, yeah. that's
With
what my
like
mind went.
silver
Super epic.
jumpsuits.
Yeah, with like the big hair.
Yes.
Did you ever watch
That's what I was
Glow
thinking.
on Netflix? It's a
No.
fantastic show with Allison Brie about this group of girls who become pro wrestlers in the 80s. And it's like based on a true story, but it's like obviously wrestling was very chauvinistic
Yeah.
and male dominated. So like they come along and they try to like, you know, make it more female friendly. It's a hilarious show.
Glow.
It's really cool. I take it you probably don't watch a lot of television because you probably don't have time, huh? I know that whenever I speak with like CEOs and whatnot, I'm always like, Jade, stop bringing up TV. They don't have time for that nonsense.
I feel like there's a lot you can learn. Like I did watch the Nat Geo Mara series.
Oh, that one was
because-
so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt like I could justify it because it was like part actual interviews.
Exactly. Absolutely. If you did have time to watch like TV or binge a show, like what's your favorite genre of television?
What would I binge? I think the last thing I tried to watch as well was Westworld.
Westworld.
And
Good ones.
yeah, I think it was. I think the problem is like with watching series is like I'll get time to watch it like once every like 3 weeks, and like with something like Westworld, like by the time it'd been like that much, I was like, who the hell was this character?
Right?
Like,
You
what
go, you
happened in the-
forget.
and, like, it was
Yeah.
such an intense show, and I loved it. But yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
Yeah, those shows were definitely written and designed in such a way that you have to watch like 4 at a time, or you have to finish it within a week. Versus
is that
like,
what you did?
yeah. Versus like, you know, traditional television was like you had one episode come out every week, and
Yeah.
it's like you were forced to
Yeah.
remember the characters and what was going on. But nowadays it's like, you know, short attention spans. It's tricky.
Yeah, I like things that explore society and probably psychology
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. Did you ever watch Black Mirror? That one's a little dark.
I had like a vendetta against Black Mirror
Oh, really?
because I was working on AI strategy, and
Yeah.
like my role was
sure.
very public, and it was very much about like how do I how do I share what AI is and why it's so exciting with
Yeah,
everybody.
absolutely.
And then you go and you single-handedly have this entire show which just casts like all these future techs as like, you know,
Terrible.
the
and
bane of
awful,
the world,
wrong,
and like you're spending every day trying to convince people not to be panicked and like to actually like embrace like the good
you have
sides.
a show
And I'm
like
just like,
this.
God damn it.
I'm
That's
doing all the
funny.
work.
Yeah.
To be fair, it's mostly humans' fault. I
No,
would-
for
I would
sure.
feel.
Like, it's, yeah, I guess that's the point of it being a mirror, right? And
Yeah.
I think even a lot of the issues that we see with AI are really fascinating
It's like the
because
technology is the technology.
Yeah.
It's what the humans decide
it's
to do
like
with it.
you have bias in the AI. It's like,
Yeah.
no, our data or the way that we've acted as humans for the last like 30 years has been biased. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's funny. It's a good way of looking at it.
All right. I'll take care of that in the software, but open up the in software, go to camera.
So sorry, Carrie Ann.
Carrie Ann.
Yes, like Mary Ann, but with a K.
Carrie Ann.
So, Jade, what we're going to, I'm going to take your iPad away.
Yeah, I know.
Just making sure.
Throw it away. Throw it out.
What we're going to do is we'll have Carrie, you're going to open the show.
Yeah.
Keep basically asking most of the questions, but Carrie Ann will be your interaction with the chat room.
Cool,
So
cool,
she'll
cool,
be
cool,
kind
cool,
of-
cool.
She'll be the lead into chat.
Radical.
Cool. Any other questions or concerns before we begin? Oh, you know what we do need to do? Donna, when you get a second, I think you read a couple of images.
We're still calling this Discovery, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Discovery, but we are calling it Steam now.
Tomorrow's Steam Discovery 2.04.
Are you GLTC Princess?
Yes.
That's galactic.
All right, right there. That's one image, and
Ooh, yes.
that's the second image. That's what we have, right? Just the two? Cool. All right. Do we want to talk to either of those, or are you not really not relevant to this conversation?
If we happen to get talking about Mars at some point, then I guess this is our concepts right now.
If you want to, we won't show them, but you can call. Yeah, anyone here can call to them. So just say we've got a couple of images of our concepts, and we'll bring them up.
Cool.
If you don't say that, we won't go to them.
Okay.
Cool.
good.
That's not on you. That's on everyone.
Okay.
So like, stuff and things.
Cool.
Great. Any other questions, concerns, complaints? All right.
So I just want to make sure I get the verbiage correct as well. So when I'm introducing Astria, so I'll introduce you as is it officially founder and CEO or just founder? What do you prefer?
Just founder.
Founder, okay, founder of Astria, an AI company focused on space exploration, or how do you like to summarize?
I guess sustainability.
Got it.
Sustainability in space and also Earth. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
Company focused on sustainability in space and on Earth. Does that sound good?
Sounds
Or
good.
accurate? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure I do it justice. You only get 5 seconds to reel them in. Just kidding. They see me and they're like, not today, Jane, not today.
I haven't ever heard anyone say that about
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
I just say it to myself.
Should probably invert those.
Today, Jade, today.
Exactly.
Today, okay.
On tomorrow.
Hilarious. Today on tomorrow.
Eh?
And today on tomorrow. I hate it.
like it.
Love it, and I hate it. And I
You
think
hate
that's
that
why
you
I
love it, that's
Yeah. Dr. Natalie Renz. I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? Renz? Okay, cool. I've mispronounced
feel like
names
that's-
pretty wacky before.
Hard to screw up.
You'd be
Renz.
surprised. Natalie Renz. Best
Renz.
company focused on sustainability in space and on Earth. Hi, Natalie. Okay. Oh, that's me. All right. Well,
That's what we look like together.
we look good together.
Yeah, we do.
This is nice.
Duh.
This is nice. This feels right. This feels great.
You're too funny.
They already think I'm not an Australian.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to tomorrow's Steam Discovery 2.04. Can I redo that? I'm so sorry. I didn't know what camera to look at, so I started looking at that. Hello, patrons. Welcome to Tomorrow's STEAM Discovery 2.04. My name's Jade. I have next to me an awesome Carrie Ann, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Natalie Renz of Astria, a company dedicated to sustainability not only on Earth but also in space. So diving right into it, because I already know I have just about a million questions.
At least.
Can you go ahead and just kind of give us a little breakdown on who you are and basically what you do?
Fair. My background was very much in science, and so I've come on a bit of a weird flip into the whole technology space. But I started off with biomedical science and this kind of very childish or young idea that I would be able to go off and explore the Amazon and search for new medicine and use this to create something that would help people, I guess, make cures for people. And as I went on, I got more and more interested in neuroscience and then more interested in cognitive neuroscience. And I eventually did my PhD in neuroscience, looking at how do you use machine learning and computational models to predict human decisions. And from that, it showed me, I think, for the first time, the power of coding and technology.
Yeah.
And the more and more I looked into it, the more I thought that you could actually start to understand a lot more about humans and create a lot more solutions for humans by looking at artificial intelligence. That was really what got me excited about it. And then I had an opportunity to come to Silicon Valley when I was about a year out from finishing, and that just flipped my whole mindset because you saw this insane rush in society for AI and all of these different applications that you could do with it. And I just felt like I'd been in a bubble in academia.
Sure.
And yeah, so from that I went straight into a role on AI strategy with Office of the Queensland Chief Entrepreneur, which was with the government in Australia.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was a really amazing opportunity. And at the same time, I was running an AI meetup and just trying to get more and more people engaged with AI and excited about all the things that we could be doing with it. And I think at the same time, I was still looking for that kind of Amazon experience or something where you could really discover something and explore and do something that would help humankind. And I'd been following Elon Musk and SpaceX, obviously, I think, as most of us do. Yeah, and then it was really the Falcon Heavy launch last year in February, where something in my brain started to just like click into place, and that made me realize for the first time that all of this background that I had with humans could potentially actually be applied to this next goal that we're gunning for in terms of being able to get to Mars. And before that, I hadn't really thought that I could work on this kind of thing because it seemed like it was for engineers, and I was very much science and humans, and it just hadn't pieced together that opportunity was there. And so from there, I panicked and I started working and started Astria pretty soon after that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, first of all, I'm super happy that you made that switch in your brain, because we absolutely need that element, especially if we want to, someday go to Mars and maybe even beyond.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like at the core of it, you really have this passion for helping people. Because, you mentioned like going to the Amazon and discovering, like maybe a new medication or something that'll help humanity. So in what ways do you envision AI being able to help humanity?
I think AI can help in a lot of ways, but I think the real power it always gives us is that you can analyze patterns in data much better with AI than you can with humans. And I started to have these really trippy recurring dreams after the Starman launch, when I was really reading all of these articles on what is actually being done in terms of automating activities on the International Space Station, and what are really like the latest advancements coming from NASA, et cetera, about supporting human life and making sure that everything is always optimal, right? That you're never going to have a failure in your carbon dioxide machine or things like this. And, I started to have these crazy dreams where I just wake up in a panic and with this sense that something had gone wrong in the spaceship, or something had gone wrong in the habitat. And it wasn't like one single thing had happened that something had broken, but it was like the entire balance or the equilibrium of this entire environment had failed. And I would wake up and try to save people. It happened again and again and again. And it just kind of started to make me think about this idea that if you had AI that was able to monitor all the conditions in an environment, whether it's a ship or a habitat on Mars or anywhere on Earth, where you're also trying to sustain life. And if you took in all of this data about the air quality or the temperature, the external conditions, the resources that you need, with AI, you have the ability to actually start to calculate from all of that masses of data, what is it that's actually nominal or optimal for human life, and what is it that's starting to look like it's going wrong before it even gets to a point that it is wrong.
That's interesting.
So that was where I started to get really excited about it, and actually started looking at a lot of different places like refugee camps in Antarctica and any space where you're really trying to optimize for human life, and at the moment it's hard to do, even in houses, but yeah.
For sure. That's funny. Yeah, I can't even figure out what the optimal temperature for my house is for me anyway.
Exactly, let alone an extreme environment like Antarctica or Mars.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's definitely fascinating and very important as well, because I mean, I think that your dreams were kind of trying to tell you something, that when it comes to supporting a group of humans, like there's so many little intricacies that if something goes wrong, goodness knows the whole system's thrown off, and before you know it, you know, what seemed like a small error ends up becoming almost fatal. At least that's how it is in the sci-fi books that I read.
Yeah, even on the Nat Geo series, right, where a human goes insane, that kills everyone.
Yes.
Or even like the Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, I think, also kind of explores it a little. Once one little thing is off, it's like it's a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Very cool. So using then AI to help humanity, and then ultimately help us further our presence in space, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about Astria. So upon founding Astria, what was like your big vision for this? Like, what was your main goal for it?
I really think it was founded in a panic.
Oh my goodness, I love that. So urgent.
It was, I think it was like 7th of February for us, like when Starman was launched, and I just started reading crazy amounts of books on the latest in like psychology in space and anything I could find about human factors, and looking at what private companies were doing in terms of human survival, because obviously we have SpaceX and others that are gunning for the rockets to get us there, and NASA is obviously contributing a lot of work, but they work at a different pace, right?
Yeah.
And if we, for example, succeed in getting to Mars in 10 years' time, I don't think that at the current level of technology, that investment in the technology for survival, that there would really be what I would deem adequate knowledge of and support for surviving there. And so it was really, I think it was like 4 months to the day, and I just started it with just simply the idea that we had to enable sustainable life.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot of time from there to think about how do you actually do this. I first looked at wearables. How do you start to track all the physiological signals? Because obviously, again, you can use AI to, for example, detect when you have an anomaly that could be leading to a heart failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I got to a point where I thought that if you wanted to really make sure that the entire group of people was not only supported in terms of survival needs, but also supported psychologically, that you needed to be tracking or supporting at a bigger level. And that really led me ultimately to think that if you control the habitat and you make sure that entire habitat has some kind of like guardian system in some way acting, then you can ensure survival for everyone.
Interesting.
That's how we got there.
Did you get a chance to look into European Space Agency, ESA, a number of years back? Because we've been doing, well, we haven't been doing STEAM, but I have been doing TMRO.Space for 12 years now. So it's sort of vague and in the back there, but Mars 500, where they had some astronauts and they sort of locked them into a thing and you know, had that. And they had to do a couple of them because there was one crew that kind of went a little psycho, or like one person on there that kind of went a little.
Is that the one where the guy tried to get into the girl and then so it's like fractured the whole group as well? Was it
something like that? Yeah, it was an interesting, but it was interesting. But you're right, like there aren't a whole lot of those sorts of things going on right now, whether it's Mars simulations with you know, at Hawaii, or you know, high seas, or you know, anything along those lines. There aren't a lot of them, and they're not very prevalent. So I could see where you trying to look into something that, like, there's just not a lot of information out there all the way around, and that's absolutely a huge concern. Again, above and beyond the International Space Station, I suppose. which doesn't really delve into a whole lot of the psychology with all that.
I think a lot of the focus that I see is on basically how do you form an optimal team that is going to get on with each other. And
Yeah.
in some ways, obviously, I think this is important, but in other ways, I think if we really are serious about establishing an entire, more permanent colony somewhere else, like Mars, then you can't actually solve for it by simply trying to validate that every single human that goes up there is going to get along with the others, because very soon it's going to be more than 5 people.
Yeah,
For sure.
And there's going to
And-
be so many factors once they get there as well.
And I think the other part of it is, I think in some ways it discredits the fact that the environment itself can be made more functional for human psychology. And if you think about how the space station currently runs, I was reading Scott Kelly's book, and it kind of discusses how there's crazy noises everywhere and it smells really bad. And, you know, like it's not actually in any way tuned for how we should operate or how we can feel some sense of normality there.
Sure.
And not to mention that if you start to have that kind of detrimental environment, you're cognitively not functioning well either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean, I think also just kind of like the innate shock of being off the planet. Like, I don't think that's something that, as you said, we can control for, because simply we don't know what it's like. I mean, of course, in the Apollo missions, there were people on the moon, but not for weeks or months at a time, the way we're ultimately envisioning it. And goodness knows what it must feel like to be on literally, like, it's already weird being in a different state or a different country,
Right.
but being on a different planet, like, you know, so it's fascinating that you're delving into that. So you mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of factors we need to take in consideration to make an environment as, I guess, hospitable as possible. So in which ways do you envision, like, the AI being able to help with that?
I think I've been approaching it at a kind of a pyramid level of what do you need as a human. And so right now we're very much focused on the fundamental layer. If you can't ensure that your oxygen supply and your water supply and your energy is very efficient, and that you have a very good prediction of what that horizon is, then you're really sitting with this kind of fundamental fear about, you know, whether something is suddenly going to kill you, or like you have a crack in the environment and you have no way of actually having predicted that something was already weak in that spot. And so that's kind of my first thinking, is you need to be able to really govern the resources that are
It's like
keeping you
Maslow's
alive.
hierarchy
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Cool.
And then I think once you can make sure that these basic needs are met, then you kind of move more into the psychological aspect. And it's definitely, I think, harder there in terms of coming up with a solution. I think we can do a lot in terms of detecting what kind of state people are in. So even work that's being done here, for example, if you start to move your thumb slower when you're using your phone, they've correlated this or predicted that people are becoming depressive. And there are weird metrics even in terms of the way that you start to move in a room. Your gait can actually indicate that you're becoming ill. And there's I think the craziest one actually I've read is there's like very young research using Wi-Fi, where they can use just the deterrence of the Wi-Fi signals.
Exactly.
And like read your heart rate and your sleep patterns. And if you can detect changes in your sleep patterns, that's also a really good indicator that something is going wrong psychologically. So we can detect these things, but then in terms of like, how do you solve for this? I think you still need to have some level of human intervention, hopefully, or maybe a robot, maybe VR if we get there. But,
Yeah, so in that way, then the AI is more so like helping us to identify and detect, and then it's kind of up to us to then like go and fix it, basically, or monitor it, or.
I think at this point, I think there are also people who are developing AI-based therapists and or like virtual avatars, and this is really important because a lot of people that have mental illness or are feeling, I guess not feeling like they're normal in society, don't tend to want to go to see a normal therapist. Or if you've got PTSD, then it's like already a stigma that, you know, you're weak if you go and do this. And so I think that's actually been a really fascinating development in starting to create an avatar that can read your emotional responses and step you through these kind of processes without having a human have to do it. So
that's fascinating. Cool. As somebody who goes to therapy, I completely understand that.
Yeah,
a million %. there's a really interesting question from our chat room. Astro YYZ says there's a lot of existential fear surrounding AI. Elon Musk has even spoken about concerns about this. How do you counter those concerns? We talked a little bit
watch Black
earlier,
Mirror.
right? Yeah, exactly. We talked a little bit before the show. We asked, do you watch Black Mirror? And your response was like, absolutely not. That is. I can totally see how that could be a concern. Do you have a strategy around that, maybe at all?
Like a PR strategy for AI.
Black Mirror's just written, it's fine.
Yeah, I think what we were talking about before in terms of it's important to understand that the technology itself is not bad in any way. It is more powerful than a lot of technology that we've had so far. And so I kind of sit on the fence in terms of I understand why Elon Musk has put out these warnings. And I think in some ways that's important to do. And it's important to start to think now, what are the repercussions if we don't do this well and we don't govern how we develop AI?
Sure.
At the same time, I think in terms of general society, and we were talking before, I was in a public role really trying to advocate for AI and its use in entrepreneurial endeavors. And a lot of the fear that I came into was really not conducive to the problems that needed to be solved in a way.
Sure.
So if people are focused on panicking about Terminator, they're not really focused on addressing the more present issues that we need to be thinking about. How do we retrain jobs?
Exactly.
And how do we start to introduce measures that are removing bias, which is
I
like
was
really
going to ask about that.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think I was just reading an article recently about how AI is obviously like going to be one of the next big revolutions in tech, but it's only as good as the data that we feed into it.
Sure.
And I mean, biases are almost extremely difficult to get down to like a zero bias. But how do you envision, ensuring that the AI that we ultimately rely on is as, I guess, reliable as possible when it comes to making sure, because I'm not entirely well acquainted with how AI works or like what happens to the data once it gets put in. But I did understand that if the data is only coming from a very specific source and it's not entirely representative of the population at large, there could be some like discrepancies there. So how do you envision like kind of overcoming that or avoiding that?
I think there are a number of strategies people use. The first is to try to simply not label the data in a way that you can introduce bias. So if you're trying to look at professional outcomes and you put female and male like in there, or even in some ways if you put historical data and you put CEO in there, obviously because we've had far more male CEOs in the past, if you then ask it for a prediction about the future, it's going to statistically take that information. It's going to give a female a lower percentage chance of actually being a CEO. And so in some ways you have to think about the labels that you're actually, if you're doing supervised learning, the labels that you're putting into it, and then be smarter about what those labels actually mean historically. In other ways, I think some of the issues, for example, with the Compass data with where they're trying to look at reoffense rates in the US. I think with things like that, when you're looking at, for example, prisoner data, there are also even things such as, like, if you put in that somebody lives in Compton, that's already biasing your data. And without you actually really starting to think, if you're just putting in location data, you can still start to draw out those patterns simply from what we know is a correlation. So I don't think there's like a straightforward way to solve for that, but being really cognizant about the data that you're putting in the first place. And then I think the other side is that once you've developed these algorithms, that you test them. There are, like in some of the cases that have come out, if a third party came in and just tried to validate it against actual data, they found that there was this insane bias. So that should have been checked in the first place. Again, with like all these like crazy things about like labeling black people as gorillas and then like just trying to take like the word gorilla out as a label, it's not really fixing the fact that you didn't go through that thoroughly. But it's not, you can't fix and you can't catch everything, but I think you just have to be in a mindset that is an important thing to be thinking about.
So AI really is kind of like, it's a check on humanity. So it's kind of like telling society to get its tests together in so many words. Wow, very interesting. Never thought of it like that. Okay, so we were going through images earlier before the show, and I saw a couple of Mars images or illustrations.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about what your vision for Mars is, or what that project's all about?
In terms of what we're working on?
Yeah,
In terms
exactly.
So I guess we have about 10 years theoretically until the first rockets are headed there, and we need to have habitats in place that are going to be able to, as best as they can, make sure that the very contentious chances that we really have of surviving there are at least the highest possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And so my primary focus right now is on how do we actually develop this AI system, or how do we develop the software that with sensors is able to monitor these environments and to try to predict anything that's going wrong as soon as we can, to try to send this to mission control as rapidly as possible, given that we have this 2 to 24 minute 4 to 24 minute communication delay, and then just really start to operate an environment even before humans are in there, to make sure that we can actually accurately govern, especially in the different physics that are there
for
on
sure.
Mars. And then from there, either through partnership, or if we get there ourselves, I think the other major issue that we're facing right now is how do you actually build all these habitats there? And I don't really know if we have a really good solution yet, given that we have such huge weight constraints on shipping anything there.
Oh, sure.
And a lot of people have been like, yeah, but we can just build them with robots. But if anybody, I'm not going to work on robots because they're insane.
Right.
Even I was at Amazon Remars, and they had Boston Dynamics, which is obviously the most amazing robots that we have on
Yeah.
Earth. And even on their demo, they've the dog flipped out on stage and KO'd itself. And it's but robots are freaking hard. They're hard enough on Earth, let alone just shipping autonomous robots to Mars and being it's going to build the house for us.
Yeah, and relying on that. My goodness.
So
That's funny.
I think that's something that we haven't yet figured out a really good strategy for, and so it's definitely in our thinking is how do we start to play with modular designs, or maybe even origami-based designs.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, you can actually use AI for really cool generative design, where they've used this in structures there we go.
There it
So
is.
design.
That's really cool.
It's done by Dave Lloyd, who's just a wizard. He's amazing. But yeah, I'll take a seg.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I think a lot of the concept ideas that are important have been, first, how do you have something which is modular? So how do you draw from how nature is actually used,
Exactly.
fractal designs, etc., to do something which can, you can fill out the one kind of module at a time, and then keep filling as more humans come, and then you can start to actually have this very biological growth. And I think
very organic.
yeah, Oceanics, the floating city designs with Big they've also gone for kind of a hexagon. I think I'm slightly in love with hexagons.
Yeah.
It's this very,
Great. Looks amazing.
So flattering to look at. Just satisfying.
very efficient,
Yeah.
very efficient, natural way of designing. So yeah, that's something. And then obviously you have to think about all the different aspects, such as radiation. So
Yeah.
you have the regolith. We probably don't have this thick enough on here, but I'm also kind of banking on the fact that we have some kind of material advances in our plastics, or even maybe glass, but probably plastics. So you can actually design polyethylene, for example, that can absorb some of the radiation.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And then if you put obviously plants, that's good for us psychologically.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe the plants that are at the top of this are going to have some crazy mutations, but
They're avocado plants. I can tell from here.
Really?
No, I'm joking.
I was like,
totally
they
joking.
might be. But yeah, hopefully some of those plants are actually able to provide food for us eventually.
That's
eventually.
really
Yeah.
cool. And then this is solar or no?
Yeah, I think we're pretty. I think most people would agree we're going to be nuclear based for the most part. I think because obviously if there's a massive dust storm, then we're screwed with the solar.
Right.
But yeah, I guess that's in a way technical to solve, and in a way political to solve.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, for now, I think we'd also have solar.
Yeah. So it sounds like the AI approach, or AI sounds very holistic then when it comes to planning for ultimate like human exploration of different planets, because it's I mean, yeah, like you said, you kind of started with a pyramid where it's like, okay, let's make sure their basic needs are met. Okay, let's go to their psychological, and then you know, so on and so forth. So that's really fascinating that AI is able to kind of help us build these solutions from all these aspects, and even ones that we either didn't think of or we didn't pay too much attention to. Because like you said, you know, there's the engineers out there, and there's you know, the people who are kind of getting ahead of themselves in a way. It's like, okay, we have the rocketry, we have the mechanics, but let's dial it back a little and actually think about, okay, well, there's a lot of human factors that
what happens when we get there?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really glad you're doing this work.
When it sounds
so
like
that it's not too late.
yeah, no joke. But it also
Yeah.
sounds like AI in a weird way. I'm going to sound like the lazy American here. Is taking a lot off of your plate, right? Like back in the day, I used to have to memorize my mother's phone number, my friend's phone number, like whatever kind of thing. And now I have a phone that just sort of does that for me. I don't think about it anymore. So there's some basics,
start of a cyborg.
exactly, that are sort of taking some of those things away that I don't have to sort of fill my mind with anymore. I don't have to be concerned about it necessarily because something else is taking care of it for me. Yeah, I particularly love the therapy thing. That's amazing. But I mean, that could also act as like a friend, or in theory, you expand on that, and that could be, you know, an avatar of a friend that you know, so you feel more comfortable talking to them, right?
Actually, it's kind of fascinating. If you look at any of the isolation studies, whether it's in space or whether it's remote scientific spots on Earth, they find this kind of syndrome where people will band together very strongly within the group because you're counting on each other for survival.
Yeah.
Most of the time, obviously, like if you have, like, for example, biosphere, that didn't go amazingly well.
Sure.
But most of the time, they actually band together for the most part. And if they have an external party, whether it's mission control, whether it's the people that are operating the base back home from on Antarctica, for example, they find a lot of aggression actually ends up being directed back at them. So they'll rebel against the outside influence that's coming into the group.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Right. Well, because they're not going through the same experience. You don't know what I'm going through, but you know what I'm going through.
yeah, you're like, oh, just go
Therefore-
do the thing, but like they're not actually in the stress environment. I think part of
Yeah.
it is maybe that, but then part of it is just like they need to be able to direct this emotion or energy somewhere, and it's
Yeah.
more detrimental to direct it at their own crewmates than it is to direct it at the guy who's on the line. But
Yeah.
maybe if you actually had this kind of like avatar system, everyone could just go yell at that instead.
Yeah.
Wow,
Avatar wouldn't care either way. Yeah.
But then the AI starts to develop a grudge against all of us, and it's
No,
like,
no. Technology is fine.
technology's objective. It's fine.
It's
great.
what the humans do.
It's
to
us.
it. What the humans do.
Always
with it.
us. Yeah,
That's really interesting.
it is.
James Johnson from our YouTube channel saying there are so many Mars simulations that seem to lack the technical accuracy of the environment. You know, kind of going back to the simulations we were talking about, like high rise and everything, or high seas. Sorry, high rise, high seas, the same thing. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I wonder, do you foresee a time where you would sort of test out this technology on maybe a Mars simulation sort of situation to kind of see, like, how are you doing this testing, I guess, is more my question.
Mars, like an analog
Yes, that's what I mean.
environment. I 100% think that we will do this, but I'm also taking a slightly different approach in terms of, I think if you actually approach a habitat as like from first principles, what you have is you have an environment where you need to have some kind of protection from the outside environment, and you need to be able to make sure that all of the needs for a human are met within that bubble, right?
Yes.
And so theoretically, it's not that much different to any space that we live in on Earth if you approach it from that manner. And if you especially focus on extreme environments, whether it's underwater, like a submarine, or whether it's in the middle of the desert, where your natural resources and the environment outside are detrimental to life, and you have to be able to develop a system that can sustain life within that like very small ecosystem, that you can actually start to develop these systems in any space like that on Earth to some degree.
Sure.
And so that's the approach that we're taking in like commercially, is actually to develop on these kind of environments. And so it's not just a Mars analog, but it's yeah, it can be like a luxury resort, like in Abu Dhabi, which I was like
Sure.
looking at. I was like, they had to go from zero, you know, they had like
Yeah.
just desert, and they had to be able to create not only like very functional life with all of your water and energy supplies, etc., but very luxurious life
Yeah.
there. And so if you can develop some of these elements in all of these spots that we have on Earth, then you have most of what I think you need. And then you can also test out in these Mars scenarios where you then start to introduce more of these psychological effects that we're interested in. And then the other aspect, which is obviously going to be insanely different once we go to Mars, is the physics. And for some, for some of that, you have to rely on the models that we have available. And then the other part is if you can kind of pre-train your models to function in environments here, and you can get them up and running on Mars before humans, then they have time to basically like start to learn or add to their training on how that environment is actually functioning.
That's interesting. Yeah, get a baseline for the environment itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm very curious. So now that we've spoken at length, all the different things we're going to have to look out for when we send humans to Mars and beyond. Now I have to ask personally, would you, knowing everything that you know and all of the potential risks and all the factors, would you go?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love how you answered before I even asked. You would?
Yeah, like I don't want to be the first one. I think Elon Musk is pretty smart on his thinking.
Right? Yes.
But I think that would be phenomenal to be one of the first humans like in our entire history to be on this new land. It would be amazing. And then if you're on site, you have so much more capacity to actually contribute to how you're building there and how things are operating.
Definitely.
Very
hands-on approach.
Awesome.
Yeah. Very cool.
Somebody from our chat room, FRBE0101, says, how smart does AI need to be to not have a human in the loop?
I don't know if it's a question about how smart it has to be or whether you want to not have a human in the loop at all
How autonomous
and where it
Interesting.
operates.
Yeah.
I think most of the time, I think it's important to understand AI as a tool. It's not it's not a being of its own, and so I think in some ways a lot of things today function without humans in the loop because it's not important, like a recommender system on Amazon, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
In some ways, what we're doing with self-driving cars is going to be one of the riskiest things that we've done so far because that's something where if something goes wrong, it kills you, right?
Right.
But you're trusting it with its life to function without basically any intervention at some point.
Yeah.
So I think we can get to not having humans in the loop relatively easily, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. It's just how do you actually have the checkpoints in place that are going to make sure, like for example, if we have these environments and we succeed at creating something which has managed to learn how to optimize the system very well, you probably have a period of time where even though it knows that you want to, for example, switch off your water at this time or to open the windows or something, that it tells you to do this first. So you're still having this kind of like training period where you're still in control. And I think even as you go forward at all points in time, you need to have the capacity to override.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so interesting, too, because, I mean, as AI has developed, the boundaries have been getting pushed further and further back in terms of if you were to tell somebody, even just 10 or 15 years ago, like, hey, there's going to be a software driving your car for you, they'd be like, heck no. And then they would be even more freaked out if you said that AI is going to be your therapist. But, as we get more acclimated to the idea that this technology can help us and that it is a tool, I think that, it's going to be less and less taboo that AI starts to take on, like you said, like a recommender system on Amazon. Like that just used to be a salesperson at Sears 20 years ago.
Right.
And nowadays it's like it's an algorithm that's like, yeah, I do want to buy those shoes, or that does look like a great toaster. So it's going to be interesting to see like what humans are going to be more and more comfortable with as AI does start to truly develop into this very useful tool. But do you ever, and this is more of like, I guess, a sci-fi question, but do you ever envision AI escalating to a point that perhaps there would be no return, and that like even with human intervention, it would just turn into its own, not being, but more powerful than we can I guess, control?
Well, to not throw you down that rabbit hole exactly.
Sorry.
Johnny Spacer in our chat room has a relatively similar
Oh, let's
question.
leave it to Johnny Spacer then.
If you don't mind.
No, please do.
What we think of AI in the future most likely will not necessarily come to pass, right? Look at nanotechnology when it was first introduced in the early 90s and nanotechnology today. Right, because I think like nanotech, you know, in the 90s was like, oh, everyone's going to get an implant and then it's going to rule your whole body and it's going to know, same sort of thing, like it's going to know you're sick before you know you're sick and it's going to kill cancer and it's not a big deal. And like, right, like there was a whole lot of those sorts of things, I think, back in the day. Right.
Exactly.
And I think in a similar vein, which is what I think is the core of what you're
asking. It is,
asking.
because I think the thing is that with AI, it's at least with nanotechnology, you're still talking about something tangible.
Sure.
But with AI, it's intangible. It's coding, it's algorithms, it's formulas, and you know, all these things that you can't see or touch. And I think that kind of contributes to the overall weariness that people have. You know,
I mean that makes sense. There's still humans writing the code, though. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think effectively, what we're all trying to say is, where do you think the future of AI
That's
is?
what I was trying to ask. Yeah.
I think if you look at many technologies that come out, even VR, for example, and AI was first proposed in the 1950s, right? So we've gone through all these summers and winters, and I think it's always, you always have to be cautious when you claim that something is dead because it hasn't reached the timeline that people expected it to get there in. And I'm always astounded reading science fiction from way back, you know, like Arthur C. Clarke, for example.
Yeah.
Like what he saw for the future was phenomenal. And maybe it didn't happen in a timeline that we thought it would happen, but it's still going to happen at some point once that exists. AI, I think there's a lot of discussion about whether we have reached the kind of summer that will continue rather than crashing and burning. And I would probably say that I support that this is really here to stay at this point, because if you look at the economics of what is going on, there is so much investment and there is such an insane rate of advancement right now that if you have those factors, if you have companies pouring money into this and you have these continuing applications that are helpful to society most of the time, then you will continue to have the human labor and the money that is necessary for that to continue to develop as a technology. And maybe it's not going to result in a superhuman in 10 years' time. But I still think if we have this drive that it will continue to develop. In terms of where we actually go in future, I think it does concern me. From Life 3.0, there's a really good, by Max Tegmark, there's a really good kind of take on why we have to be so cautious about this. I think one of the most stupid things I've seen that genuinely terrified me is people trying to train general AI on blockchain, which is like, if we're trying to get to a point where we have general artificial intelligence, that's something where if you get to that point, once it kind of reaches that capacity to teach itself and to learn, it can be exponential in how rapidly it advances from there. You want to have the capacity to actually shut down something if you haven't thought about what is happening. And if you train it on a blockchain system where there is no centralized system for doing this, and everyone else's basically algorithms are feeding together to create this, then the only way that you would ever manage to, if like in the worst case scenario, to try to override this would be to shut down the internet or so
the nuclear option.
I do think that we have to really think really solidly about how we develop AI, because there is a chance that it gets to this point, and especially if we continue to invest in it the way that we do, then it will get to that point. I think there's no fundamental reason why we cannot develop intelligence better than us.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Insane. So then, again, speaking about the future and whatnot, and all these amazing places, and yet still, with caution, all the amazing places that AI can take us, how do you envision the future of Astria then, kind of tying into all of this?
We're definitely gunning to try to hit the targets that SpaceX have set, just because I think that they're going to be the first to go to Mars. I want us to be involved. And if we can do that faster and better than anybody else, or with partnerships with people who are also working on it, then that's my real primary goal right now. But at the same time, I think you have to accept that space is the riskiest thing you can possibly build for,
Yeah.
and if you decide to commit a commercial company to succeeding only if you build for space, then
Right.
that's like not only stupid, but it's also, I think that you can be using this for so much more, like even on Earth. And it actually panics me almost equally about all the climate change that we're facing now and all the really stupid decisions that you're seeing people make. And so I think there's a lot of talk about how do we start to use technology to help. For example, we're facing 40% urbanization in Africa and Asia. If we look at our buildings that are currently operating, they emit 39% of our carbon. And so if you can just make a difference to the way that we build buildings and build communities, and you can kind of tie in these principles that we're trying to work towards to have a sustainable habitat on another planet, that you can also end up trying to mitigate a lot of the damage that's currently being done here. So yeah, plan A is get to Mars, and then plan B at the same time is how do we start to develop systems that could help to create super sustainable cities all over Earth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like the way that sounds.
Yeah, right?
Sounds like a good plan. I'm in.
Good. If anybody is interested in more and wants to get involved or anything along those lines, how does somebody find Astria?
Astria.com.
Perfect.
Or just, find me on Twitter. It's Natalie Renz, or Astria_AI. It's probably where I chat to most people.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you for enlightening us and having a really awesome conversation.
Yeah, thank you for indulging all my curiosity and some of my weirder questions.
Yeah,
They're amazing.
I'm sure there's more.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, a huge thank you, of course, to our patrons and everyone who contributes to tomorrow. We have actually a really cool new thing. YouTube just started this really cool thing. So you can either hit up patreon.com/TMRO, or you can go to youtube.com/TMRO/join, I believe it is. The typeface is a little tiny for me, but hopefully you can read it from there. In any case, and then you can get your name on one of these slates as well. And so you can decide how much you want to contribute, which is really cool. And have it be known that we could not do these sorts of things without you in any way, shape, or form. It would just be Ben and I, again, probably in our living room or something along those lines. And this is way
Which
better.
is just as entertaining.
It's, I don't know. It's hard to invite doctors over for just our living room, to be honest. So every little bit counts, of course. And even honestly, just hitting the subscribe also really helps quite a bit. So feel free to contribute in any way that you would like to tomorrow, as it were. And that's what we have for Discovery 2.04.
And it's tomorrow STEAM.
It is.
I don't know if you guys caught that.
It is. Yeah, it's not just science. We're talking about science, technology, engineering, math, and sometimes arts. Yes. STEAM, because I can spell, is really what it comes down to. In any case, that's it for us today. Join us next time. We'll see you then. Bye. To close.
No,
I remember how to do this.
it's contagious, and I'm sorry.
Oh, I apologize.
I hate to
Oh.
be that guy.
No, that was amazing.
But
And then,
I've never
you're looking at
that
the wrong
guy.
camera, and I was like, I can't. The light is over there. There's something I can do.
I promise we're professional.
Oh, we know what we're doing. I
You know
swear.
what? It is weird filming at noon 30.
Yeah.
Because I'm so, like in the mornings, it's kind of like, oh, I'm up,
Right.
In the noon, it's like I've already kind of lived my day. So I'm like, no excuses. I'm just always like,
Oh my goodness.
thank you. You did amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was,
no,
like,
that was
genuinely
awesome.
Fascinated.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I was almost sad when you stopped talking. I was like, oh, right, I have to do something.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry.
But to hear like your story about how the Starman really inspired you, and just how like I love it that you like panicked and that you're like, oh my god,
like, we have to do something now.
Because like people feel that, but then they kind of like dial it back, like, oh, okay, so I guess I'll think of it. But you were like, no, we got started right now, and that's amazing. Because I think
and did it.
Exactly. The most prolific things like in history have been done because it was people who had that attitude, like we gotta do something now.
I think Starman's actually a really good example about art.
Yes.
People often say, like, what does
talked
art
about
ever
that.
achieve for society?
Oh,
Sure,
please.
yeah,
Like the kickback to Starman was just like, why did they like litter this space with a car? And
Sure.
it's like, if you think about who that inspired and what they will go on to do
Yeah.
for their artwork and century.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's funny because there was a bunch of people. I'll just only point to Jared, but there was a bunch of people on the show who was like, when they heard that the car was going up and Starman was going up or whatever, that it just wasn't. It wasn't compelling to him at all. He said,
thought it was like a gimmick.
total gimmick. Like, how stupid. Like, why would you want to do that? And then saw it and was like, that's the coolest thing ever. Oh my God, why didn't we do that before? Like, I can't believe we didn't. Like, yeah.
I mean, just that visual of like
Symbolism,
the
Yeah.
symbolism of like this thing we're all so like acquainted with cars.
Yeah.
Cars.
And then a humanoid sort of thing.
Just cruising, and then wasn't he listening to David Bowie in the car?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, like Elon
good.
knew what he was doing. That
So good.
compelling visual. That was like my phone's background for at least a year.
I tried to get it on my, because here you can customize your bank cards. So I tried to get it on the back of my bank card and they rejected it. I was like, damn it.
Why?
So now I just have Mars.
Mars still pretty cool.
I mean, that works.
Yeah.
How funny. That's really cool. Oh, fascinating. I love it.
Yeah. Especially, because like AI, as soon as I was doing more like background research on Astria and saw, it's like very like AI technology based. One of the things that the nonprofit I work for, one of the things we do is we also we partner with other corporations to develop curriculum for high school students and even junior high students. Because you had mentioned it, like automation is very much taking over the modern day job. And so we're trying to prepare students for those, what we call like, jobs of the future essentially. And AI is a huge part of that. And we're developing a data analytic, I think I can talk about this. Yeah, we're developing a data analytics course right now for high school juniors, but we're also trying to develop an AI course for high schoolers because my CEO is like, he's like one of those very visionary types of people who he just thinks 20 years ahead of time. And so, my little toe has been dipped into the world of AI, but it's fascinating how, just how quickly, I feel like, it, like you said, it's an iterative process and it's been a concept since the 50s, but at the same time, is it one of those things that like, once you hit a certain point, it is just exponential and it's like, what took 50 years, then is going to take like a matter of maybe months for it to just quadruple.
Isn't there like an idiom of sorts that's like every 10 years technology?
I've
Right?
heard that.
Right? I don't,
I think timelines are really hard to predict. Like, and even like some of the things they're like, we're not going to crack something that can beat us at like strategy games or things like this for a decade, and this will be like the best people in the field. And then like 2 years later, it's like AlphaGo like just demolishes the world champion, and it's like, oh, okay. Like,
just
and
kidding.
So some things like that, and then like the number of advancements that came after that, which just blitzed again and again. Like, and like now we're up to like Dota team playing, and that's like a couple years.
Yeah.
I think it's like 5 years. Like on like we're just, it's insane. And then other things we're like, oh, we're totally gonna crack this, and we're still trying to get a robot to be able to like pick things up, and so like like it's just a notoriously difficult field to figure out. But I think if you manage to get to an algorithm that can self-teach, and you start to have any element of generalization, that's when you start to have like very rapid growth. But
Interesting. Have you seen the movie She?
yeah. All right, she.
You mean
no.
her?
She. Her?
Her.
The one
Her.
with Joaquin
Seen her.
Phoenix?
Sorry. Yes, her.
I was like,
I meant
I
her.
understood what you meant, and then I said,
I know.
yes.
Me
Sorry.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
I was thinking about
I didn't
that.
mean her.
Yeah, with Scarlett Johansson's voice.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I think it's a real possibility. Like, and especially you start to look at like societies like Japan, where they already spend more time on computers than with each other. And
Japan's a fascinating example of how this can really not take over, but really get integrated into our like everyday lives.
Easily integrated.
like even there, like they have an entire term for it about the elderly who die alone there right now. And so like if you had something which could at least monitor your elderly, like, and make sure that if they fall and they die,
because like every year,
or, like,
how many
if they
people,
fall,
like you're right, like elderly die either because they're alone or like heat stroke, right? There's nobody else there.
Yeah.
Or remember in Minnesota, it was like literally they would die because it was too cold.
Freeze to death.
Like,
Yeah.
stuff like that because they were just alone. There was nobody there to check up on them. They weren't
It's
in a
like
home.
what Life
They
Alert
were
tried to do.
kinda,
I fall
yeah.
and I can't get up.
Yeah.
Press this button.
Yeah. But like to have that just
Theoretically, you want
integrated into
something
your stuff,
where,
Preventative. Yeah.
like
that'd be amazing.
even preventative, like it's like you're starting to walk a bit funny. Like maybe someone should come and check on you
Yeah.
before you fall and break. Because
Right.
like once you fall and broken your hip, there's like little you can
Exactly.
do, right?
And I've also, speaking of Japan, like I've also read certain things. Like, so there was a very, very unfortunate trend going on with, because the work ethic over there is, especially in the corporate side, is very intense. And you have these like Japanese business people who work like 12, 13 hours a day. They don't get to see their
Sleeping in little
families.
pods.
Yeah, they sleep in the pods, and like there was this terrible suicide epidemic that was occurring just because of the isolation, the loneliness, and the stress.
sure.
So I'm wondering too. I'm sure that they've already introduced like some sort of like perhaps like AR companionship system to kind of mitigate. Because I know there's only so much you can do before you really just need to be with another human.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, yeah.
Oh no, that's why the therapy thing sort of spoke to me a little bit.
Yes.
Because like it's practically virtual for me. Like,
Yeah,
I have met
exactly.
my therapist one time in person, and every other time has been over the phone because I don't have time in the middle of my day or even at the end of my day. Like our office hours basically don't work out, right? So I take an hour, basically, a little bit more of a lunch, and go to my car, have her on the phone. She can see me, I can see her, so she's still getting a lot of the micro expressions,
Oh yeah.
and the voice tonality and all the other fun stuff. But like, effectively, it is basically just an avatar that I'm talking to. She just happens to,
It's interesting.
like, we've met at least, like I said,
Two-dimensional.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, I mean that really spoke to me in that way because I was like, oh yeah, it would just be like being on the phone with my therapist, like MBT.
But then you think about too, like, yeah, there's the virtual aspect, but then it's AI based, right? And so it's not like a human therapist, which again is, even with all of the training and all of the years of experience, can still be flawed in a treatment plan or in the way that they.
Or have any sort of biases,
Yeah,
right? Like if you don't, your biases and your therapist biases don't necessarily line up,
I can't imagine how.
right? So like it's just
crazy
a
it would be then
non-biased, yeah. it
to
would
have
be,
AI help like therapy, like that.
be really incredible.
There's so many intricacies and there's so many like.
Like I didn't want to harp on that in the show, but I was like, what?
No.
Tell me everything.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Cool. Hey, how's it going over there?
Pretty good. We should probably wrap up here.
Yeah, sorry
Oh,
about
right.
that.
We
Got a
have
little ahead of
nails.
myself.
We have nails.
Oh my god. So
Yeah.
they introduced me to the art of getting your nails done like a month ago. My first time ever, and now I'm obsessed. I would never have imagined myself with matte white nails, and look at me now.
Here you are.
I'm a new woman.
You're not wrong though. They do look like teeth.
They're like teeth, right?
So funny.
I really do want to like
Are they
make one
sparkly?
yellow. No.
I really like the flat look. I'm not a sparkle type of gal.
I'm apparently.
She's definitely a sparkle gal.
This is for 4th of July though.
Never
like
change.
this is like way more sparkly than I would normally do.
That's really
It's like chunky glitter.
It is.
I love it. It reminds me of the tilt-a-whirl.
What?
You know, like rides at fairs are glittery.
what?
Never mind.
Oh.
Tilt-a-whirl is this like
I
ride
thought you were
where you
going.
go and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
You're
yeah,
not
we should
wrong.
wrap.
All right, good. So let's wrap up After Dark. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. See you guys next time, next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, something. Right?
What she said.
That's it.